Oh, let's try this one more time. Gotta save, gotta share the new link. All right. Okay, I think everything's good now. Uh, having had a few issues at the start trying to get the privacy set correctly. I was testing some settings and I kind of bungled some of the. I forgot to change it back to public after I got my settings worked out. So now we're here. Everything should be okay now. Uh, what an exciting day! This is all right, Schlag. Yeah, we got you in the. We got you here now. What an exciting day. I've got the video queued up to just at the end of the introductory video, which I highly recommend you go and watch. I thought it was really well made. I think it gives a pretty honest perspective on the current state of Star Engine. You do see some pop in the video, so at least they're not trying to hide that aspect. But there was a few sneaky bits. They did show some fauna, that's animals in the demo, and that was a little misleading because we don't have that yet, but maybe that means that it's coming soon. TM. They also showed a new quantum travel animation, which it looked really cool, but I don't know if that's something that we'll actually ever see or not. Um, but I haven't watched this introduction from Chris Roberts, so you guys can check that out with me. I've basically been kind of skipping around a lot, trying to get caught up on the most important stuff. Let's make sure that the audio is somewhat balanced. New water animation, that is really cool, and we're going to talk about that. Man. Alright. I'm just gonna skip the end. I want to watch Chris.
I think we're close to 1 billion kilometers traveled during that whole sequence. So hats off to the engine team and supported by our cinematic.
One thing I really liked to see, it's going to be in the section about the star map. We'll get to that later on. But I noticed that while they were showing distances in the star map, it shows it in gigameters. So if you've been playing Star Citizen for a while, you're probably used to seeing people talk about millions of kilometers. Well, it's the metric system, so we have a term for that. It's gigameters. So I just like the idea that gigameters is now the official unit that the star map uses. I think it'll make things a lot more. Well, it'll reduce a lot of the visual clutter when you're looking at different distances, which I think is great because right now it's kind of insane. So he was just talking about billions of kilometers. That would be, oh shoot, now metric unit for billion terameters. So we just traveled some terameters.
Artists that put it together. I also need to call out Pedro Camacho's music, which is always beautiful and sets the scene so well.
It really does have some of the best music Star Citizen.
And it's pretty stunning to think that hopefully from this video, and we're going to go into some of the new features later on in more detail, and you'll see actually better representations of some of the simulation that was happening there. But it's pretty amazing to think that all that happens inside the engine seamlessly without switching, loading screens, or anything else. You can go from down up close to a blade of grass all the way out, looking at a whole planet, to moving to another star system. And that's actually one of the hardest things to do, especially when you do it at the scale we do online with that level of physical simulation, with hundreds of players, thousands of AI running
I can
around.
boost the audio a little bit if that's what you guys want.
Tech guys who are going to be coming up and talking about what
now they
doing.
should be about even. They should just be a little louder than the video.
Now, obviously, some of the things in here aren't in the current live build of Star Citizen. Like, for instance, at the very beginning, I don't know if you noticed the conductor with the hair blowing and the tails blowing. That's all simulated in real time, and we'll talk about it on the physics part of the upcoming speech.
Okay, is he going to mention the fact that we don't yet have
to talk about some of all this new tech
yet have fauna
and go into more detail, and we'll be rolling into Star Citizen over the next 12 months or so. And some of it, like some of the new cloud stuff, will actually come in 3.22, which is great.
Remote send me a quick text.
But before I do this, I wanted to introduce Benoit Beauchesseau, who, as a lot of you know, Turbulent have been our long-term partners here in Star Citizen since the end of 2012. They built our web platform and our digital distribution platform, and a few years ago started to help us on developing the game. We have almost about 100 game developers in Montreal, because Montreal is a great place for game developing talent. And this year we brought Turbulent into the fold of CIG, and they're now fully part of CIG. So this July they joined us, and Benoit, who is the Chief Technical Officer of Turbulent, has now become the Chief Technical Officer of Cloud Imperium. And along with him and Marc Boudet, who is the CEO of Turbulent, is now our head of global studios. They're strengthening our management team at CIG, and I'm really, really happy to have them. And I want to introduce Benoit to come to the stage, since he leads up the tech group, and he can give you a little setup of what we're going to be doing this year and going forward, and some of the new initiatives we're going to go. So, Benoit?
Okay. Pretty simple introduction, nothing too spicy there. I kind of expected Chris to say a little bit more, but I'm sure we'll see more of him as the day goes on. Bonjour!
Bonjour, CitizenCon! We are so happy to be here. It's been so long to see you guys physically, and just being able to interact has been fantastic.
You'll probably have
so
a bigger
far,
role to play
We're super
tomorrow.
excited about all this.
Rumors say that
The
Squadron
video you
42 is the big focus of
outlined
tomorrow.
a lot of features in the Star Engine.
And I imagine CR is going to be
Reminder
a lot more present
of what
there.
makes this game so special. It's a focus on fidelity. I said it. It's a focus on immersion.
Okay. We're going to do a bit more skipping around than watching everything, because I don't want to make you guys sit through a 7-hour stream and you guys probably just finished watching one with someone else. So we're just going to kind of jump around to the things that I'm interested in and that I feel like I can offer more insight. First off, kind of summarizing this section, they've done a lot of improvements to make clouds work better. If you go to Orison today, you're used to seeing some pretty pixely clouds. They've added some new techniques to make it so that things look a lot smoother, and we're getting more ground fog and light shafts that can interact with that. So the interplay between light, shadow, and clouds is going to be a lot stronger, and it's going to be a lot more realistic overall. Moving to this section, they started talking about water, which was really cool. Water is definitely one of the low points visually in Star Citizen today. It's not really something that you can interact with, but they now have much better interactability.
Properly into our water lighting setup.
So I'll let this play
and
for a little
bit. It also meant that we
bit.
could get more fun techniques, such as wave crest backlight scattering, as adding.
The tough part with these sections is it can get very jargony. Like, I have no idea what forward shading means.
Examples of that here. In
I guess it's good, but I don't know what it means.
In the near frame, you can see we're refracting the iceberg underneath. It's correctly
Just a few things I want to point out here. High resolution screen space reflections. Screen space means that if you are looking at something and it is on your screen and all the elements are contained within your screen, you'll get a reflection. So it's different from ray tracing. Ray tracing implies that regardless of where the light source is or regardless of where the reflective surface is, there will be a reflection. So let's say, for instance, that what would be a good example? Well, let's say that there's a tower behind us somewhere, right? It's possible that we could see the reflection of that tower somewhere here, right, on the screen, if it were rendered correctly. Screen space reflections are a little different in that it is limited to your field of view. So what we're talking about here is like this glacier. It has this section sticking up above the water, and you can see some reflection going on in the water surface here. We can also see that there's other parts of the glacier below, and so that's not reflection, but that's refraction. So when you go through one medium, let's see, trying to get my hand parallel to the camera. When light goes through one medium, it'll then hit the surface and then it'll bend. And that's what makes it so that, if you're trying to grab a rock from a river, you might have to adjust the position of your hand relative to where you think that rock is. It creates that illusion. So what they're talking about here is getting accurate refraction. It will feel what you intuitively expect the water to do with when you're looking into it. So really cool stuff.
In the mid frame, you can see that the iceberg is reflected back onto the water.
I want to jump forward a little more,
though, and that's a bit trickier. So
water is typically something that's very difficult to render because if you do it from the particle perspective, water is literally made up of trillions and just actually an unimaginable number of particles if you wanted to do it, one to one with life, right? So the best research papers right now find ways to simplify it. So instead of looking at particles, maybe you're looking at a cluster of particles and you use those as a demonstration or a way to kind of get the same effect without having to do as much of a rendering overhead. What he's talking about here is really cool because it's taking that idea and applying levels of detail to it. So you would expect as a player that the water nearest you is the most accurate, has the most accurate interactions, right? If you throw a stone, you want to see some nice ripples. But if you throw a rock and somehow throw it 100 meters away, which would be very impressive, you don't expect to see ripples from that, right? It's too far away. So what he's talking about here is applying that kind of idea to their water rendering.
What we devised is yet another set of regions. Now, the regions are slightly different. The simulation regions need to happen wherever something is contacting the water, and that needs to happen regardless as to whether you can see it, because if there's a collision going on there, I look away.
A little side note, we've got a lot of people active in the Twitch chat that we're watching back. This is one of the things that scares me about future success as a YouTuber is I'm not going to be able to keep up with chat.
Anything can influence our water, whether it be the simulation, whether it be weather, whether it be VFX. And then anything can be affected by water now. So the water rendering reads from this. But then we can also spawn VFX particles from wave crests. We can add screen space effects. We can have a line across your visor. We don't have this yet. But it's accurate to the
we don't have this
water
yet.
in front of you.
That part's
We've
so
got this
funny
technology
to me.
now, so we can use it to influence any of our work going forward.
We could, but we don't have it yet.
Here's a video of some of it in action. I'll just let that play. This is the debug mode. Essentially, we're moving a sphere of basically infinite mass through the water. And as you see, if we pan out a bit, we make our sphere a bit bigger, we get a much different result from the sim. Spawning the foam properly. It looks really nice. Really happy with this one.
I mean, think about the games that you play today that do have some level of water simulation. Call of Duty Warzone does it. Not this good. Battlefield has some interaction. This level of dynamism for water interactivity is crazy. It's really impressive.
We can add the results from multiple sizes of simulation together, and they influence and interact with one another accurately. You see those big waves crashing over the little sim there.
And,
it works really nicely.
I want you to pay attention to these regions in between these paths. Maybe you remember from physics, but when you have two waves that move towards each other, they can either have destructive or constructive interference. If they are in phase, they'll have a constructive interference, right? So the wave will increase in amplitude at that section. If it's destructive, then they'll cancel each other out and you'll get a flat spot. They're doing that here live with these ripples, and that's really cool to me. And yeah, Schlag points out, add this on top of the fact that this is all done in a multiplayer game. Not just a multiplayer game, though. A multiplayer game with 64-bit coordinates, meaning that we go from the sub-millimeter level of scale to the terameter level of scale. Right? That is insane. And it's all done with very few actual load screens, just like you say, Schlag. Okay, so watch these ripples.
I've gone ahead of my subtitles, but I'll just let that video play out.
There's areas of constructive and destructive interference. I mean, this looks like what you would expect to see in a water environment in real life, which is very, very impressive.
Actually, I think this video does
just a few short years ago, this kind of stuff would have been impossible, but there's been tons of research into this level of, or this type of graphical rendering. It's crazy to see what is possible now. And we've got the thrusters kicking up a mist. The Gladius is making its own ripples. We've got foam spawning.
Forward in a second. You're going to see the wake start to happen behind us there. And from the cockpit perspective, water...
For all its faults, Episode 7 of Star Wars had that scene where you have the X-Wings coming across the water. Such a cool scene. You couldn't do that before in Star Citizen. With this kind of rendering, now you can. Let me pull that up, actually. Swing over water, episode 7. Yeah, here we go.
Go straight at him. Don't let these thugs scare you.
Copy that.
We're with you, Poe.
So I know Erad has been working on his shot-for-shot remake of Star Wars in Star Citizen. Now he'll be able to do those kinds of effects and get these kinds of shots. So I'm really happy to see water simulation like this. It's really cool.
Thrown up from the water sim. This is what I'm talking about using multi-output.
And those little droplets, they're going to... it's going to be the kinds of things that you maybe don't notice exactly, but the immersion is going to increase, and you're going to notice it by not noticing it.
Thank you so much, Sitcon. Handing back over to Ali.
It's so good. This whole render section that we're about to go into is also a lot of fun.
So, I'm here to talk
Except
to you
this is
today
the
about
blood,
a few
sweat,
of
and
the
tears
graphical
part.
things we've got
I'm
coming
not
in.
super
really
excited
proud of
about
the work we've
that.
done on the fire and the water. They're both and mesh streaming engine that helps us get. And
Yeah,
what we do is
we're getting a lot of
categorize all
cool
this into
stuff.
different biomes. So based on the temperature,
The ability
moisture,
to
we find out what is a
create
desert, what
biomes
is
a
a
lot
forest.
more intelligently.
And this part is crucial. So this is the
millisecond, which is always good.
Okay. This is what I wanted to get to. Global illumination.
Specifically talking about this guy, the diffuse penguin. Glossy GI has actually been disabled in all the videos. Even the old system videos don't show the glossy GI here, just to aid the comparison. First off, we've got a video from Chris Campbell, who's going to make us look cool.
Oh, we're definitely going to be going over audio. Oh, pause. Okay. All right, this is what I wanted to show this image. I'm going to pull up Photoshop actually, so that we can do this proper justice. Because I want to elaborate on what we're actually looking at here. Let's see. Let me grab this, and then paste that down here. Don't worry, I'll show you guys what I'm looking at in just a second. Just got to get things positioned. All right, now if things work correctly, I should be able to go to screen 2, and now you can see this, hopefully. Let's see, move this. Nope, screen went black. Okay, let's fix that. Let's turn on. Okay, hey, I'm back, guys. Okay, got to set up the. There we go. All right. Okay. All right. So now you can see what I'm looking at on my screen. I got a new tablet, so that's why it wasn't working initially. People are often wondering in comment sections on videos all the time what ray tracing is actually doing. And ray tracing is both light itself, but also color. Those things are intrinsically linked. So in this scene, we've got a light source. Let's see, use a nice bright color. We've got a light source coming in from this direction, right? And it's hitting this Pisces, okay? It's hitting it as a bright white-ish light, right? But then when it's coming off, it's taking on some of the characteristics of that Pisces. So now when it bounces, it's a pink light, and that's going up onto the ceiling here. And so if we do a color picker, if I grab just to put these guys right next to each other, that is the effect that ray tracing is having. It's taking these two different colors and blending them in a natural way that we see all the time. So the difference can be very, very subtle in a lot of cases, but it's adding that extra flavor to the coloring, the lighting, that's making everything feel a lot more real to the viewer. There's other stuff going on too. If you notice, this side of the screen looks brighter than this side of the screen. Why is that? Well, because we have those reflections happening. You need fewer light sources to illuminate the same area. Right? I'm sure you've had the situation where you're walking around your ship and it feels really dark. Well, we've got lights, right? Shouldn't this light be doing something? Well, it is. It's just it's very limited in scope at the moment. It, it without those reflections, a light can only go out like this, right? With no reflections. But all of a sudden, once you add reflections, this light, which is coming from one direction, now it can bounce over here. Now it can go up there. So it can fill this area with light and make things feel like they're better illuminated. So I just wanted to point that out. That's kind of what we're talking about with global illumination. Let's get the stream pulled back up. Go back to our main screen. And this one's a really good example. Okay, super blank. Uh-oh. Let's see, Schlag, did it eventually fix itself? You guys were able to see what I was showing, right? Okay, I hope that was the case. I'll go over it super quick here just in case. Actually, I should be able to pull up my stream and see how that was going. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Got me panicking. Okay, so here's another really good example. We've got light that is streaming in through a window over here, right? And this side looks so much brighter because you have those reflections going on. So your dark, dingy hallways don't feel like that anymore. Now you can have those reflections that fill in a lot of these spaces. It makes these ships feel so much more inviting. I think that's going to be one of the things that you'll see. Wish the messages had timestamps for you. That was from the, okay, yeah. I do too, friend. Sometimes streaming it's definitely an art form. One that I haven't figured out yet. Again, we've got light streaming in from the front, right? With the way that it's done right now, the backs of these seats don't really interact with that light. If we were to see the seats from in front, we'd see that they're nice and illuminated, but it's not happening back here, and that makes this whole scene feel darker. But once you add some reflections, now you can get that ambient light bouncing back onto the seat, and all those details that the artist spends so much time putting in, but it now can actually be seen. All right. I know that this is kind of hard to watch with me pausing it like this over and over, but I highly recommend you go and watch this in its full form. It's really good. But these boxes do raise a concern in my mind, and that is, what about dynamic objects, right? Um, these boxes, we can treat them as a stand-in for cargo, right? So if we were to grab this box with our tractor beam, um, are we going to see that global illumination updating in real time? One of the concerns I have is, if you've played Minecraft with ray tracing, you know that it takes a second for it to update. And the lighting in these situations looks great, but it's not really a dynamic environment. Not in the way that we're going to be experiencing it as players. So one of my concerns is, how are they going to deal with that delay that can happen with a lot of these ray tracing methods? They don't really touch on that in this presentation, which that's like I said, that's one of my concerns. So yeah, I wrote down some other notes here too. Yeah, so how's it going to work with dynamic objects? Yeah, so I would have liked to see them, moving some cargo boxes around, uh, see how it works with ships flying, see how those shadows are updating. They do show how it can help in the cockpit, and I'm hoping that that carries over to these other situations I'm talking about, because it does. If it does, it does quell my fears a little bit. This is a character I would want to live in. The character I have right now in my hangar, very dark, kind of depressing. But this, everything feels warmer. It's brighter. It's better lit. It's beautiful. Okay, this is another good example, and I'm glad we got the Pisces here again, because it gives some nice red color. But look at this gray here on the right side versus this gray here. It's very subtle. Um, Many people may not even notice it, but this is what we call a cool gray. There's a lot of blue light um, being caused by just the ambient lighting in this area. But over here we have a much warmer gray as a consequence of the light coming in from this hangar and also bouncing off the Pisces. You can see that warm light illuminating this whole half of the hallway. Over here, it still feels very cold. Um, it allows the light to be a character within your game. And we've got some God rays that we don't have those right now, not like this. But this whole area just feels it feels more correct. That's probably a good way to summarize it. Is it makes it feel more correct. Now that that light is no longer hitting us, now we've got that cool lighting again.
So next up, the boring or the interesting bit. How are we doing it?
Oh, it's really interesting to me. Don't worry,
I'm
friend.
just going to dig into that just a little bit. So we're closely based on AMD's recent paper, GI 1.0. We're probably going to build on top of that, but at the moment we're quite close to it. We ray trace against a simplified world so that we get like smoother lighting for the, since it's a diffuse scene.
I'm going to skip forward ahead just a little bit. He gets very high level. Oh, I think I went too far.
Since it's a diffuse scene,
okay.
we want
all right,
sort of
we're just going to watch it through.
Smooth signal.
He's basically what the way that it currently works is we have one big ball in the middle.
We do generate a lot of probes. So the new
They're moving to a system that allows them to use,
for comparison,
I think he says 25,000 different probes.
And the new system is about 25,000 probes that are all on screen at the same time. And we're going to see that now.
Okay, maybe I didn't go too far.
Here's a scene that I've dramatized a little bit just to give trouble to the old lighting system. And this is what the ray tracing sees. So it's a simplified single color per object kind of thing. But then we've also got this kind of a 3D dictionary of average light values so that the light is kind of shared over things in a similar area.
This part, really high level for me. I don't really understand what he's showing with this part specifically. But when he shows the results here in just a minute.
This is the old system. So you'd render a single image from the center of the room.
So what he's talking about, let's see if I can get just that part to play again.
Well, for comparison, the old probe was about one probe per room. And the new system, it just got this, blur it, and then slap it.
Okay. All right, let's try this again.
So going back to the
pause here. Okay, so this is your environment probe. You've got, it's basically it's a reflection of the entire environment around it, and you use this to map the lighting. So you can see that you literally have a reflection of everything that it sees. If you make a mirror, if you were to take a mirror and then rub it with some sandpaper, you'd get what this turns into.
System. So you'd render a single image.
Starts to look very blurry, okay? So this is still a reflection, but it's now a much blurrier reflection so that it's a more generalized view of what the room looks like so that you can focus on how that lighting should interact with things.
Image from the center of the room, blur it, and then slap it onto the entire scene.
And then this is the result. Now, the problem here is over here off screen, we have the same red light that you see over here. That red light doesn't do anything to this surface, and it should because it's in view of the light. It's definitely within view of any reflections of the light. So we should see some red hue happening on panels here, here, and over here, but we don't see that. We only see the blue light. It completely overshadows everything.
Now, as you can see, like the middle of the scene is about the right lighting, but everything else has got the middle of the scene's lighting. Like these red lights at the sides, they're basically drowned out by the table bounce that somehow made it across the room to them. So we want to replace that system with 25,000.
So each of these little balls is the equivalent in processing of that big ball from before. So it's the same idea, but now we have 25,000 different data points that we're taking, and it's for the whole room. Before, you would just place your environment node somewhere in the room, probably a centralized location so that it gets a good average of the room. But now we can sample the entire room and use 25,000 probes to do it. So the lighting that we get is already much more accurate. Just in this, we could think of it as like a low-res render of the room. You can already see that that red light I was talking about, it bleeds much more into this area, and we're starting to get some red on those panels that we were looking at.
Probes, each one of them only providing light to a small area around themselves. And then we interpolate that to provide like a smooth bounce.
And as we step up in resolution again, like I said, there should be red here. Now there is.
And you can see already in the distance, like the red light is really bouncing up there. And then we add a screen space occlusion pass just to tidy up the edges on things.
And then once you add your
And then it's the final
textures,
composite.
everything starts to look right.
Next. So, what else does it do? Well, because it's real-time generation, it means we can do a real-time bounce, and we can do that with quite small areas. You can get like a really vibrant bounce that picks up off small objects in the scene. Ooh. And that means that the art team can really lean into like strong local variation on color. As again, we will see. So we'll do a side-by-side comparison on this one.
As you can right there. Okay, so this panel of the box looks almost identical to here. Okay, not much is changing in the sense of direct lighting, right? Global illumination is all about reflections and how that interacts with the color. So if we look over here, we see that the light is bouncing off of our yellow box and casting a reflection over on this panel here. That doesn't occur in the old system because there wasn't any global illumination. But now that there is, it's making things feel more complete. We can also see that that reflection is also bouncing back up onto the ceiling, and we're seeing details here that are completely obscured over on the left side.
You can already see like the spotlight's really like throwing stuff into the scene. This is just one light in the room.
I want to go back to that.
And we did have live updating.
You can also see that it's interacting differently with the green, the yellow, and the blue. As that light pans over, it shifts from being a blue reflect or a yellow reflection to a blue reflection. So it makes the lighting so much more interesting. It has so much appeal to it.
System, but it was designed for like time of day changes rather than this continuous smooth view. And finally, it means that we can do things.
Here's another really good example. We've got a literal blue light, and we can see that it is casting blue light onto the environment. And logically, it's going to reflect a little better on our blue object.
Things like glowing surfaces can just illuminate the world without having to add special lights to
Dude, that was a really good example of
one light in the room. We will see.
I keep forgetting that I can just use the arrow keys.
Comparison on this one. As you can already see, like the spotlights.
Okay, see, blue reflection, really cool. See, okay, so Schlug brings up, gonna need a supercomputer soon. I've been thinking about this the past week because I knew that they were going to talk about a lot of graphical updates for the engine. But graphical stuff all happens on the GPU, which my GPU is still very much underutilized. I updated to a 5800X3D for my CPU, and that has had a dramatic improvement on my frames, which I mentioned on the Discord. I do not recommend that you upgrade your computer specifically for Star Citizen. I did because I'm a content creator and I rely on Star Citizen a lot to create my content, but you should save your money until Star Citizen is actually optimized. But this kind of stuff with the technology that we have in GPUs today, I don't think that there is actually going to be a whole lot of graphical overhead unless you're running on an older system that does not already have that kind of ray tracing hardware incorporated. So I think if you've got a GPU and you can look at Windows Task Manager and see that your GPU is underutilized, which in 9 cases out of 10 for Star Citizen, it is always the case, then you might not actually notice that much of a performance hit. If you're on a laptop, though, that it's not so much that the laptop is going to catch on fire, you might catch on fire. Don't have that on your lap. That you're going to give yourself third-degree burns, because this is definitely going to make your laptop cook more.
It's really like throwing stuff into the scene. This
yeah,
is just
total blue cast light. Really excited for that.
We did have like glowing surfaces can just illuminate the world without.
Okay, so this is what I wanted to show. probably very minor detail to other people, but it's exciting to me because I do some artwork on the side. Um, Things look different when they have different colored lights on them. Okay, over here we have generic lighting, right? It's slightly illuminated because there is a faint light source. But over here we have our properly rendered colored lighting. And when you hit blue with that, particularly if it's a blue with some green in it, those are complementary colors. They cancel each other out a lot. So this box suddenly looks nearly black. Well, that's the interplay between your blue and your red light. Over here, you get kind of like an orange, but again, it's a very faint light, so it's not going to be super bright. Green over here, again, it looks almost black because it's not going to reflect that light nearly as much. So color of an object also has an interaction with how much of the colored light it's going to reflect. So it's really cool.
Without having to add special
I'm
lights.
I'm
to
really
protect
geeking
it.
out about this stuff. Pretty common issue that we have in our cockpits
this is a really
today
common case in
is
Star Citizen particularly, but
you
this is
can't
gonna
see
help
the
us.
UI super well.
First off, cockpit brightness.
And
We
what they're
capture at
going
the
to talk
moment
about
the-
right now actually has a lot of implications for being able to see
At the
your
moment, we capture that
cockpit
cockpit
clearly.
probe in a setup scene, and then we don't update it as you're flying around. So you're not going to get the sky color in, and you're not going to get the ground color in. And then we've got the opposite problem that I don't have a picture for this, but cargo bays, sometimes they're light, you land somewhere dark, you open up the doors, and now you've just got this weird little light room with nothing spilling out of it.
Yeah, there's a mismatch.
So
You
again,
can see
that's
the
on the
bright
video.
ship interior and a dark environment around it.
Oh yeah, so this is the old system. The sun's working, but you can see there's no sky.
Totally dark right now, right? That's a problem because you need to see this stuff. And if things are being rendered properly, you should be able to see them. It doesn't make sense for these things to completely disappear just because they're in shadow. We still see things when they're in shadow, and that's because we're totally missing this ground light. And it's weird to think of ground as a light, but it's because the ground does reflect a lot of light. That's why we can see the moon at night, because the moon is reflecting a lot of light to us. So it does act as a light source.
There's no ground lighting. By the way, I've turned off a lot of the cockpit lights so that you can see this. And then in the new one, you can
Now we've
already
got
see
the global
skylight is
illumination
kind of
kicking
helping a
in.
little, but then as you turn
Totally different scenario here, or totally different result. Now we can actually still see all of our stuff. We've got a very, very warm light because we're over probably somewhere like Daymar, right? It's a deserty environment, so it's casting this orange light from the ground. Beautiful
over,
stuff.
you get all the ground lighting. And yet there's more.
But wait,
See,
there's
one of the
more.
concerns we had was that we didn't want to create a two-tier system. If people have got hardware ray tracing and it's working for them, that's great. But you can't really have the art team
Mossy Pyro World,
optimizing
you're
the
right.
scene
That's
for
not
one type
Daymar.
of lighting and then having to optimize it for another type of lighting and having to trade off decisions about the two of them. So what we've been experimenting with is trying to create a new low bar that's higher than the old low bar, as well as creating a new high bar. And the idea for this is basically to take that single room environment probe system that we have been using, update it so that we can do live relighting on that, and then to sort of slot that in where the ray tracing would be while still keeping all of the other stuff, like the 25,000 probes and all that kind of stuff, can look at the old system and we kind of Frankenstein them together. So
Okay, so it gets a little jargony there. Basically, when you have your artists working on something, if you have them work strictly for the idea that there's no ray tracing, then that affects the way that you actually do your render pipeline. It affects the way that you do the artwork. So there's a couple games out now where when you turn ray tracing on, it makes things look off. Well, that's because it wasn't considered when the game was made. So what they're talking about is you don't want to have a split like that. You want to create a global illumination standard that will work for everyone, and then hardware will improve on it. So what they're talking about is a software way of achieving global illuminations that if you don't have a fancy RTX graphics card, you can still use that and you'll still have a lot of the same benefits. And then hardware will just add that extra level of polish where things look a little smoother and a little more nuanced.
I'll show you what we've got so far for this. So this is just the old one and the new one so that you can see the problems. Like, just, it's overly lit, let's be honest. And now this is what Star Citizen would have looked like if we released it on the PS1. The sharp-eyed among you may have noticed also the ship is missing, but you know, we can't do dynamic objects in this.
The sharp-eyed among us, right? The big ship that was in the middle, it's gone.
It doesn't seem to mind. And there we have software GI in the middle, which is, yeah, like I say,
Not perfect, that's what he's about to say, but it's a huge improvement from what we have over here. Over here, you have to dump light sources into an area to get any level of illumination that looks okay. Hardware can pull a lot of weight and it can make things look really good, but it's also expensive for people that don't have it. Software hopefully offers an in-between where maybe you don't have that graphics card, but you can still get much improved lighting as a result of their efforts.
it was using the same 25,000 probe system, but not having to use any kind of hardware ray tracing. As you can see, it's not a perfect match. It's not identical, but it's a lot more dynamic than the old system. And finally,
And of course, we got Pico.
I'm just going to show you a to-do list here. I don't have pictures because it's stuff we've not done. Glossy reflections. Obviously, we want to complete the picture, and for that, we need to handle glossy reflections. That's self-explanatory, really.
Oh, a little too far. Let's go back a little bit. So now we're going to start talking about destruction, and this is another area that I get really excited. I'm a mechanical engineering student, so I've got a couple demonstrations ready for you to kind of show what they're talking about, give you a real-world example. Hopefully bring it down from the high level that they're talking about it and bring it into something that more normal people can understand. Look, more reflection,
See the
more
water
ripples.
splashes? We want players' intuitive prediction of the effect a weapon or a collision has to actually happen in the engine or in the game. So we decided to move away from hit point pools or other abstract models to simulate damage, but rather have damage be calculated from a physical model and from the physical material properties of each entity. If something breaks off due to its structural integrity decreasing below a certain threshold, Maelstrom allows it to break off in a realistic fashion. If you shoot off a wing, the missiles and weapons on that wing should still remain attached. If the broken off part still has power, electric items should still function. This means Maelstrom was needed to be designed to work with a hierarchical setup to begin with. From the hierarchical representation of the geometry we want to break off to the same hierarchy on a higher level for items like power plants, lights, weapon systems, and so on. Maelstrom is persistence and networking ready. We designed it from the ground up to work with high latency situations, to persist and replicate easily.
So I'm going to skip forward just a little bit. Here's another demo of what we're talking about. Awesome stuff.
We needed to find a good way to easily and efficiently determine when a breakable cluster breaks. We chose a well-established model from material sciences and structural engineering, cantilever beams. In essence, a cantilever is a structural member that has a fixed support and a free end. Forces experienced on the free end can be used to calculate the amount of stress the fixed support is enduring. The basic ideas behind that are best explained from a very simple example. If a ship were to collide with the horizontal part of the crane in the image, far from the vertical part, the fixed support would endure a higher stress as if the ship were to collide closer to the vertical part.
Yeah. So we need to break that down a little bit. First off, stress is any force applied to your object. Okay? So if I push on my hand, right, I create a stress on my hand. That's something that you can measure. You can get a Newton value for it. That's your stress. Strain is how much a material deflects under a given stress. So in engineering, we talk about stress strain diagrams, and they look something like this. Okay, so let's find one that has good resolution that I can show you. All right, well, okay, this should be big enough. So on the y-axis we have stress, and on the x-axis we have strain. So if we imagine that this is the stress strain curve for the ruler, what that's saying is if I apply a force, it's going to bend, right? That bending is a strain. The stress is the force required to get to that point. So as I'm doing this, I'm pushing on it, we're moving along this flat section of the curve. If I were to apply too much to the ruler, it would eventually bend, right? You'd get a permanent crease. And I don't want to ruin my ruler, so I'm going to have paper for that. So I can apply pretty good amount of stress to this paper before we get to the yield point. Once you exceed that stress strain limit, now you have plastic deformation. So before, when it's reversible, that's elastic deformation. That's a force that's not going to break anything. But once you start adding that plastic deformation, you're never going to get this paper to be exactly the same again. It's always going to be damaged. The reason why that's important to what they're talking about right now is they have this idea of a cantilever beam, which that's what this is. They're implementing it all throughout the structure of these ships. So let's say this is going to be your left side. So let's say on stage left, we've got the missile pod on the wing, and stage right, we've got the main fuselage, all right? You have a bullet that hits one of those cantilever beams in the wing. As long as it's within a certain threshold, that wing will stay attached. But as more and more force hits it, it's going to get to a point where it's going to permanently bend, and that's when your wing is going to fall off. So it's a really, really cool idea. That point we can actually see on the stress strain curve here at the fracture point. This is a this is a metallic stress strain curve, and so typically you will see that you reach a certain stress point and then it will yield a bit. That's where you start to enter the plastic deformation point. Then it gets a little tougher. You have strain hardening. If you've ever bent a paper clip back and forth, you know that it gets harder to bend the paper clip again. That's what strain hardening is. And then you reach your fracture point. So they're simulating this process on beams all throughout the ship. And that is how they're doing Maelstrom. where every material is going to have a different stress strain curve. Like I said, this one looks like it's more for a metal. This is for a highly ductile metal, meaning that instead of having a much more distinct yield point, it will elongate more before it fractures. So something like aluminum will look more like this, where this one is more like a steel, right? Steel is less ductile than aluminum. You can also have, let's see, I'm not seeing any super great examples just yet. Hmm. Let's just add a modifier to our search. Here we go, a brittle material. So a brittle material is not going to allow much strain. It's going to be a straight line and it's going to crack. So this could be more like a cinder block, which pay attention for that because we're going to see that in just a minute. Wait, did I have another thing I wanted to talk about there? Oh, cantilever beam. A cantilever, so to define that, cantilever is when you have a fixed and a free end, like you said. What we mean by fixed is if this is our cantilever beam, relative to the ruler, my hand's not going to move as much. Okay. What he was saying about the distance, okay, if I place the Mio pod right here, not a whole lot going on, right? But if I move it over here, we can see that just by virtue of the distance from the fixed end, it's causing a lot more deflection. So distance is another important calculation when you're talking about these forces because it has a multiplicative effect where the force multiplied by the distance equals the bending moment that you're getting. Really, really cool concepts. Oh, the Mio. Yeah, this one's berry pomegranate. I took a bunch of the tropical fusion before starting the stream because I was hitting a wall. That's my preferred caffeine. All right, let me get back to here we go.
Point of impact determine how much stress the cantilever beam
Black cherry
experiences.
one's good too.
Also, how large the surface area is connecting
Berry pomegranate is probably one of my favorite
cantilever and the fixed
normal
support
flavors.
has a large influence on when a cantilever beam will break. In our case, this actually means we analyze the cross-section of the intersection of the set of geometry from two breakable clusters to calculate the surface area. A wing attached to the body has a rather large connecting surface area compared to the surface area calculated for the stabilizers connected to the body. We then project forces from impacts and explosions onto these cantilever beams.
Okay, so like I was saying with the cinder block, stuff like concrete, cement, these are what we call ceramics. Ceramics generally are very strong from a compressive strength perspective, but as soon as they're put in tension, they become very brittle. They're also not very impact resistant in many cases. That's not always the rule. You can have, like ceramic body armor that can stop bullets. But a lot of this stuff works by breaking intentionally and spreading that force over a larger area. Right? That's what bulletproof armor is actually doing for you. It's taking that really, really high point load in a small area and spreading it over a larger part of your body so that it doesn't pierce you and kill you. But it's still going to hit like a truck because it's still hitting you. So what we can see here from this picture is, yeah, we've got concrete, right? It's not going to bend and break the same way that a metal would. It's going to explode and do so in a brittle manner when it does break.
and calculate the stress the beams experience.
And like Schlag points out,
Over
this is
time,
all
the
happening
stress turns into
in a
strain,
multiplayer
and if we
environment,
reach
which
a
is
certain
unreal.
threshold, the beam snaps. The result, simple, efficient, and deterministic breakability. But this is not just about ships and buildings that you saw in the videos before. We want Maelstrom to be a systemic system that we can use on all types of entities. So here's some video of some test footage of AI shooting each other behind breakable cover and Maelstrom barrels.
So you have little bits of metal. They're more likely to bend. There's a rim for a trash can flying over here. It's all bent out of shape. You have chips flying off the it's concrete here. There's your little metal rim piece. And fleshy targets, they're pretty good at absorbing force. Just not super great at surviving it. So all of that's going to interact differently with the Maelstrom system.
Physical material properties influence damage and breaking and have a direct influence to how things break and fracture. To achieve this, we added various properties: density, yield strength, resilience, thickness, toughness, Young's modulus.
Right. So I'm gonna break this stuff down for you. Density, I think everybody kind of knows what density is. It's how much mass you have for a given volume. Something like metal, like this ruler, has much higher density than paper. Okay. For a given volume, there's more stuff inside it. That's density. Yield strength is the strength of the material, but a lot of times, especially like if I'm on a 3D printing forum, I see people talking about strength. Like, well, I want to print this in the strongest filament possible. That doesn't have any meaning like people think it does. Strong can be a lot of different things, and it's when you start getting into these material properties that strength has a much more specific meaning. Yield strength is how much force would I need to apply trying to stretch this ruler before it starts to break. Okay, so metal, really high yield strength. Paper, not so much. There's also shear strength. Paper has a really low shear strength, and that's when you have forces that oppose each other perpendicular to the material. So it's what causes a shear like that, or tear. I'm not going to do that to the ruler because I physically can't. I'd like to see someone try, though. Resilience defines the energy required to penetrate through a material. So if we were to shoot this with a bullet versus our little piece of paper, obviously the ruler has much higher resilience, right? It's going to stop a lot more of that force from the bullet. Thickness, that's pretty easy. How thick is the material? How much layers of that material are stacked on top of each other? Toughness is another one that comes up a lot, especially in those 3D printing forms like I'm talking. Something like this is actually not as tough as the Mio container, because toughness is the ability to store energy from plastic deformation, and it's the ability to resist that over a longer period of time. So if you do bend the ruler, it's not going to go back to where it was. It takes less strain to get to that point. So strain, again, being that deformation. It can't handle as much deformation before it's irreparably damaged. But this Mio, I mean, it's designed to be squozen. Okay, definitely not squozen. It's designed to be squeezed. And so by virtue of its properties, you could think of it as a lot tougher than the steel ruler here. Young's modulus, if you go back to the stress strain diagrams here, the Young's modulus is the slope of this flat section on the curve. It's a way to compare the relative strength of a material to another material. So this blue line that we have as a brittle material, that's probably something like a ceramic. we can say that this red one is like a metal. Okay. So the metal is not quite as strong as this given ceramic, but if we carry these lines out further, we probably see that the metal has different properties that make it desirable in certain situations. So you can have really high strength or a really high Young's modulus, but it can have different effects later on in this curve. But that's what Young's modulus is. It's the slope of this line here. And that kind of determines how much it's going to bend for a given force. It also plays into how rigid a material is. Again, using 3D printing as an example, PETG, often incorrectly, is thought of as being more flexible than PLA. They're actually both quite brittle, and depending on your print settings, PETG will actually be more brittle, but PETG is slightly more flexible, so it will have a lower slope relative to the PLA. But the PLA will go to a higher point before it starts to yield. There's all these trade-offs that you have to think about, and it's just so cool to me that that's being simulated in this engine.
And this is more or less what I wanted to talk about Maelstrom, but I don't want to leave without showing one more video of what carnage Maelstrom can create.
Yes, please. Beautiful. So much more dynamic than what we currently have. I am so excited for this.
So thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Benoit.
Except it's not Benoit. Sorry to spoil it for you guys, but Benoit's doing something else. We have a different guy doing the audio presentation.
I am not this person, but I'm filling in with him. So far, I mean, you guys think this is going to change your game up to now? All these new features? Hell yeah. Okay. So we've seen updates from fire, water, we've just seen force, we've seen sun and light.
Earth, wind, and fire, baby.
The next thing that's left to build a ludicrous space game is audio. And so I'll leave you with Graham, who's going to show you some of the new audio enhancements we bring to Star Engine to make it even more realistic than it is now.
Hi CitizenCon, Graham here. Good to see you. Recently in the audio team, we've been looking at how we can create a greater psychological
By default,
connection
Cutlass should
and
spew
emotional
dirty diesel
impact in
fumes.
our games through the use of improved audio
You would like that, wouldn't you,
Audio
Schlag?
can play a crucial role in the immersion of the player. And with that in mind, the audio code and technical sound design teams have been looking at all of our tech from the ground up. For example, when you're under threat, you should feel a real sense of danger. When you're armed, you should feel the dangerous power that you hold within your hands. Earlier this year, we showed you our resonance tech, which allows us to bring the action much closer to the player even when they're deep in the bowels of a ship and far away from where all the hits and the explosions are happening.
I'm getting ready for
But that's just one part
explanation
of a
what
much
we're talking
larger
about.
push to create a better, more immersive audio experience. With that in mind, let's take a look at some of the tech we've been working on. First, let's listen to some of our weapon sounds in action. They're a great simulation, but we wanted to take them further and express the sound pressure, the forces being exerted. Our new in-house audio effects, particularly the multiband compressor, tuned by our sound designers, give us this result. The compression serves to illustrate the power of the weapons and the effect that they have when going beyond the limits of the listener. Let's show you the same audio effects applied to the ship weapons, taking us from this
Which, I mean, it sounds good, right?
to this.
But, oh, man. Doesn't that sound so much better?
But it's not just about feeling powerful. Changes in audio can create a sense of danger, of
And
being
new
out on your
Gladius
own
UI
under
that we've
threat.
seen a couple times,
Here's an
but
example of ship combat.
we don't have it available to us just yet.
Sounds good, but what if we wanted a little more realism?
If any viewers of Hybrid V Audio are here, they will instantly recognize where the inspiration to this update comes from.
The audio propagation tech that we've been rolling out makes it easy.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about how sound works now. Let me switch back to our second screen here, where I've got this drawn up for you. Don't want to spoil that just yet. Let's say you are the player over here, right? If you create a sound, say with like a gun, let's use a color that looks a little better. The way it works right now, that sound kind of goes straight to whatever recipients are over here, right? But there should be interactions going on, okay? Because this sound, it goes out kind of a circle from you. Just pretend that that's circular. And then when it hits this wall, that creates its own little waves. So you should be getting all kinds of interactions when it bounces off these materials. And that's what this new sound engine is going to do. That's what it's doing. They showed a demonstration in the Inside Star Citizen a couple of weeks ago, where depending on the materials that are around you, you'll hear these different sound propagations happening. We should also see that as sound is going around a corner, there's a phenomenon where the path is going to bend. So if we look, these waves were going like this, now they're kind of going like that. That happens every time you go around a corner, and there would probably be another little bump up by this corner over here. So these two corners are shaping that sound in such a way that it's going to change the way that it interacts with the environment. And we're getting at least a little bit of that with this new sound engine. Well, let's see, let's switch back to main screen.
Easier to change the soundscape in real time, and a nice use of that technology is to provide a more realistic option. Here, your own weapons resonate through the hull of the ship. Only what's in the pressurized cockpit is heard clearly, and the threat level feels higher due to the isolating lack of enemy weapon and ship audio. Making these changes creates space in the audio, both spectrally and temporally, making impacts seem bigger, more damaging, more of a problem for the player.
Okay. So why does it sound like this? That's another thing to talk about. If we switch to my screen here again. Okay, this is how sound works on Earth or anywhere with an atmosphere. Sound will go to a particle and it will cause that particle to vibrate. And because of that vibration, it continues to propagate through the environment. That's how sound travels. It travels through media. And each of these causes a longitudinal wave, if I remember correctly. Oh, yeah. So basically, let's say that this is your normal distribution of particles. It will cause particles to compress. So this part right here would be the sound wave just starting to propagate through this environment, and then it will expand again, and the compression will move further along. Okay, so think of this as like step 1, 2, 3. So step 1 is there's no compression going on. Step 2 is you've moved this particle closer to this one, that causes a intermolecular force to keep causing that vibration to move down. That's how sound is traveling every day for you and I. But what if there's no particles? Well, if there's no particles, then sound doesn't travel the same way because it needs that medium in order to transmit like that. But there is still some sound in space, just not nearly the level that we're used to. So let's say you got your gun, right? And you fire a bullet at player 2. Okay? They're not going to hear you firing that bullet. So all the flash and boom over here, that's just for you, because what it does is it does cause you to vibrate. Those are connected to you because you're touching that weapon, and so you feel some of the sound propagate through those materials to actually hear those vibrations. But player 2 doesn't have that physical connection, so they're not going to hear it. What they are going to hear is once they're hit, it will cause a vibration to go through them at that point. That's what they hear. And that's what they're showing with this demonstration here is we can't hear this ship shooting at us, but once their projectiles hit our ship, we do hear that.
This realistic mode isn't limited to the flight experience. It's applied appropriately to the game as a whole. Here's an FPS battle in a depressurized area.
Yeah, so again here, we're used to hearing a lot of shooting, right? We can hear our character shooting because our gun is literally vibrating us.
With realistic mode, we get that sense of isolation again, giving the location a different colour and adding variety to the audio experience.
It's also a lot more muffled when it's having to travel through us as a sound, because the speed of sound is different depending on which material it's going through. It's going to be slower in thicker, denser materials, which are jello bodies are thicker, denser materials than air would be. It travels much faster through air than, no, actually, I got that backwards. It travels faster through denser objects. Anyways, it's gonna do some pitch modulation. It's going to change the way that it propagates. And we can hear that difference here. But without a medium connecting these two characters, they're not going to hear the shots until they're hit by them.
Other sounds are transmitted through physical contact. That's all from us for now. We look forward to getting these new audio features.
Pretty good example of what this is like in real life. Oh, did I switch back? I didn't. Oh no. Still on the diagram. I'm sorry, Schlog. Let's go back. Okay, let's just watch a few seconds of that. Oh no! Play.
With realistic mode, we get that sense of isolation again, giving the location a different colour and adding variety to the audio experience.
So again, there's no medium for the sound waves to propagate between the characters, so they don't hear the shots of each other until they're hit by those projectiles, and
are
you hear that
exaggerated,
impact.
and other sounds are transmitted through physical contact.
I open up chat, there's a few people complaining about the FPS crosshair. I don't think it's a big deal. I think anything you can do to make information more apparent to players is good.
That's all from us for now. We look forward to getting these new audio features into your hands.
So if you want to try that in real life, you've probably actually already experienced this. Put some headphones in or some earbuds and then go walk around, and you'll hear your steps in a way that you're not used to. Closing off your ear, you're going to hear a lot more of those conductive vibrations through your body than what you would usually hear. You don't hear your steps the same way otherwise, but that's kind of the effect that they're adding, because that's the kind of isolation that being in outer space would give. Really cool stuff.
All right.
Oh.
Hello, everyone.
This stuff is really cool. The major
So-
takeaways, I'm just going to kind of summarize it because this is very high level stuff, and I don't feel like I'm adequately experienced to add much to it, so I'm not going to make you sit here and watch it, all of it from my perspective, but you should definitely go and watch it because there are some cool stuff. They set up a 3-room environment, and they kind of show how persistence and the replication layer interact with each other. And then at a little later on, I apparently went too far. Little later on, they show an actual server mesh being done. So this is one server, this is another server, and this is another server. So 3 servers working together to render this environment. Really cool stuff. Server meshing is apparently right around the corner, but I don't feel qualified to add much more than that because it goes way over my head. Jumping forward a little bit, we've got engineering gameplay, which is really cool. It's still very much tier 0 implementation. And the stuff that they show, it looks like it's really just kind of using what we have in the game already and just adding some functionality to it, like the repair tool. So it's cool, but it's also not super groundbreaking yet. They had a really cool cosplay contest. You can see some of those results there. Then they take a break. And then when they come back, they're kind of on the floor talking to a bunch of people. They've got a Pyro demo going. Apparently, if you went to CitizenCon, you had 40 minutes to play through Pyro. Really cool stuff. Show off some of the merch. And then they show the Zeus, which looks nothing like the Zeus.
Underbelly, just like the original design.
But you probably all want to see what the inside looks like.
Yeah, we do. Okay, so here's the issue, and they do talk about this later on. Star Citizen Zeus. So the old Zeus that they're replacing look like this. The year 2140, it's basically an upscaled space shuttle. The new Zeus looks nothing like this. Instead, looks more like the angry space Doritos that we're used to from RSI coming out. I like the design, but it's not quite the homage that people expected to the Zeus Mark 1. I don't know. I think that they could still release this. They make an excuse later in the presentation, not during the one that we're watching right now, but they say, well, we couldn't really release this one because it wouldn't be gameplay complete. It'd just be kind of it would just kind of take up space. And the thing is neither ship is real. I mean, it's not like this is based off of the actual space shuttle, right? So they totally could change the design and make it more suitable for the gameplay that we have. So I think in the future they probably will release some version of the Zeus Mark 1. It might look a little different than this, and that would just be a retcon to the lore that we have. But the game is still in alpha, so I don't see why that would really be that much of a problem. But I do like the Zeus Mark 2. I think it looks really cool. I'm really hung up on whether or not I should get one. I keep telling myself that I don't need more ships in Star Citizen, but the spirit is willing, the flesh is weak, friends.
Let's have a closer look. Despite the sleek and slim body of the Zeus, we've been able to pack a lot into it to give everything you need when you're doing the deep space exploration. You have a fairly comfortable habitation, recreation.
I'm happy to see a fairly large back gate here.
It's not too unpleasant.
Yeah, buy it in game.
The rear room has a 32 SU cargo capacity, as well as being able to fit a Cyclone, so if you do decide to land on our planet, you can have a look around. Talking about the loadout, it's a ship designed for 3 crew. It comes with 4 size 2 shield generators, 2 size 2 power plants, 2 size 2 coolers, and 2 size 4 pilot-controlled weapons. And obviously,
which
the
is
turret that Elva mentioned
all
earlier,
subject to change before it gets released. That's one of the
Now,
frustrating
Zeus
parts with
Mark
these
was always
concept ship
designed from
sales
the beginning
is
to be a sleek and
right now the
aggressive
stats look
bounty
really
hunter.
good.
As
I
such, the
don't feel
Black
like
Hole
it
will help you
sounds
stay
super
hidden in the
overpowered,
shadows until you're ready to strike.
but all
He's
of this stuff
also
is really
redesigned the
subject to
spine
change
in order to
before
embed an
release.
EMP
And so
and a quantum
if you do want to
damping,
buy the
which
ship,
allows
don't
us
buy
on the
it
art
thinking that
side
it's
to
going to
really
be
crank
some
up the level
combat
of detail in
powerhouse
the
or
exterior.
whatever you think it's
We've
going to
also
be.
added a second
Buy it
boat
because
turret on the
you
top.
want to support the game,
Looking at
and
the
that's it.
interior of the Mark, you see that
Don't
the
bank on this being
habitation
as good
takes a
as
little
it
bit of a
is
hit.
now, or
But move
even
forward,
close to the
but what
same
we've been
stat
able to add
wise.
in
It
exchange
could
for
be
that is a
totally
massive
different, both for
armory
good or
that
bad.
lets you take all the different weapons and equipment you might need while you're tracking your target along the verse. Looking into the rear, we actually have a dedicated
Log,
area
I buy for the
just
Dorito.
for the actual
I mean, it's another
vantage of the
ASD,
pods,
right?
similar to what you'll see in the Cutlass
The Angry
Blue.
Space
So you
Dorito
can stack up
is
the pods
a
and
great
take multiple
design.
people back with you. It has less SCU than the ES. It only has 16 SCU. And it does have a different loadout with the components, only having 3 size 2 shield generators. Like Owen said, it does have a top-mounted forward-facing turret.
Which
so
sounds
that you
kind
can
of like
put
a
pressure on
strange
the
move for
target
me.
when
This is
chasing.
the combat-focused
EMP
one, but
and
it goes
QD
down in
drive
shield
are designed to
count.
stop the target escaping once you've caught up with them.
But it's kind of like a medium-sized interdictor.
Now, because the Zeus Clipper
Cool
focuses
idea.
on hauling cargo, we've decided to lean into the industrial aesthetic. We've covered the exterior with a warning strip paint job.
Now have
We've
Baby
covered
Bear,
the
Mama
exterior
Bear,
with more
and
technical
Papa
detail
Bear,
on armor
Zeus,
plating.
Galaxy,
In addition
Polaris.
to that, it comes with a remote tractor beam, which is mounted on the
Down and
rear
shields and
to the
up and
side of the
guns.
ramp to make it easier to haul cargo in and out of the cargo.
Are you sure on that? I thought I was looking at the... Okay, I think I have that pulled up on one of these. I thought they were the same. I could be wrong though. Weaponry. And these pages aren't really anything to go off of, but okay, so this one says 2 size 3. This is for the MR. I think it's, unless there's a typo here, which is highly possible, I think it's down in both. Oh, does it have an added turret? There must be a typo here, because it would make sense that this one has an additional turret where the others don't, but that's not how it's currently listed. It actually has it as being 1 fewer. Oh, no. Unless, okay, this means that it has one turret, and this one has 2 turrets. Okay. I get it now. So this one will have an underslung turret. The other ones, check the brochures in Discord. Did you send the Discord? Or did you send me the... If we look at this one, we should see... Yeah, the Matrix of Lies. That's a pretty good term for it. Oh, come on. Just make it bigger. My old eyes can't see. But there should be a top turret and a bottom turret. All right, let's see what Schlag sent me in the Discord. All right, here we go. So here's the CL. Thanks, Schlag. We've got an underslung turret. There's the MR, and we have a underslung turret and a top turret. So Matrix is actually correct this time, but it is still weird to read. They could probably make it a little clearer somehow. The downside to the CL is I'm not so much a fan of the paint scheme. I like the paint of the ES a lot more. But everything has its trade-offs. Back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity.
We've also added thrust capacity to the base of the wings.
As you can see, there is an absolutely massive rear to it compared to the others. The habitation areas have been massively pushed so that you don't get much space, but we can get way more cargo in. It actually has 4 times the cargo capacity of the S, coming in at 128 SUs of cargo.
Yeah, that's true. It
This
will
one
release
also
with
features
paints.
3 size 2 shield generators, and like I mentioned,
Blue
has
is
a
my
size
favorite
3
color,
tractor
but
beam
that
to
blue
make
and
it
yellow
much
just
easier to get
looks
those cargo
gaudy
containers
to me. I
in
don't
and out
like
as
it.
you're actually playing. What do you think?
But it's a really cool looking ship.
So,
oh, what did they say?
So, last year we introduced the Spirit, and anyone that may be playing on live for the last couple of days might have seen a new ship added to the verse, the A1. We hope to follow a similar route with the Zeus, where we announce it today, and then in about a year's time, ready to reveal to the public to actually play with. But this isn't just a concept. We're not just going to show you some images. The Zeus is actually in active white box development right now. Do you just want to have a look?
This is what I missed the first time I had to go away. I had to go use the restroom, and then I totally missed this part.
All right. So as you guys have seen with the Spirit and with the many ships we've released thus far, our ships can, when they're finished, look absolutely gorgeous. But before any of them get to that point, they have to go through a very specific development process. And this is the first stage in that process. We call this white box. At this point, we've taken the concept, ripped it to shreds, and then reassembled it and plugged it all back together within the editor so that we can get a real good look at what players are going to see when they finally get this game.
It looks so much smaller
At this
from this
stage,
perspective.
with the Zeus, we've already ripped out all the thrusters, we've ripped out the landing gear, the turret, the seats, the beds.
All right, guys, I gotta take a bio break. I'll put you at this group talk, and I'm gonna mute my mic. I'll be back in 5. All right. Coming back to you. Thank you for waiting.
It's all of the interior spaces. Plug those guys back in, and we have what you see here.
It probably just looks smaller to me because this is the white box model. Without all the added texture and detail,
of the process.
Shrinks it down a little
At this
bit.
point, we're able to jump in, start throwing in cargo, interacting with doors, getting in and out of beds, maybe in and out of toilets, and just getting an overall sense of what it feels like to interact with the vehicle. And it is very common that in this stage, we will make some adjustments from the original plan. As an example, on this ship, we've just made the decision to expand the center corridor, add a little bit more space to the rooms. And as a result, that's going to make it much smoother experience for players to traverse the interior of the ship, as well as for AI to traverse the interior of the ship. We've also expanded the main airlock that leads.
You younger players probably don't remember the original Avenger Titan, but it got sized up by, I think, 50% or something like that when it was reworked. It made things so much better, but they were originally designing ships to be a lot more cramped, much like their real-world counterparts, honestly, but it made for a terrible gameplay experience. Making things a little bit bigger, a little more space, makes things so much better.
Enter-exit ladder. And up here in the cockpit, we've separated the co-pilot seats a tad bit just to allow players.
Also, this has an airlock on the side, which is great because having multiple points of entry to your ship is a huge convenience.
Players to get in and out a little easier. So with White Box, not the prettiest stage in the process, but it is essential that we nail this because it means we'll be able to deliver a beautiful.
Got an airlock right around here, which I think every ship this size or bigger should have 2 points of entry. Otherwise, you have something. I think the MSR is like this, where you can only get in through the back. I don't think the MSR has a elevator anywhere else. It's just through the back. It takes forever to get into it.
Ship that is also extremely fun to play.
So that was the RSI Zeus in the 3 variants. Obviously, as the screen says behind me, it's available now on the Star Citizen website. You all follow that URL or the
available now
behind me.
Means
now
not
just
technically
talked about
available
the ship
right
with
now.
the longest legacy in the universe. It was the first ship with the quantum travel. Let's change pace a little bit and talk about a much newer ship.
This is the new cutter, I think. This is where I came back
the
first time. Yeah. Fun little ship. It's a starter ship, $45 right now.
Last year, IE, we unveiled the cutter, and you guys seem to love it. Some interesting information about it. It was actually the single most popular straight-to-flight ready ship we've ever released. You guys really, really liked it. In addition to that, it's actually the best-selling Drake ship to date.
That part really surprised me because the Cutlass is wildly
and we kept
popular.
a very good, guarded secret that no one managed to figure out. No one. It was always meant to be a family of 3.
Yeah.
Now, what everyone is already familiar with is the base. That's the version that's out in the universe right now that you're already enjoying. What we're going to do today, though, is we're going to talk about the next variant in the family. The Scout.
Okay. But,
All right, let's just take
so this is what they're selling
sort of
right now.
The incredible work that the
right now, they're the same price on the store. Given that they are the same price, you should definitely get this one. Reason why is this one will have better radar and scanning, which could be important in the near future. Just kind of depends on how that evolves over time.
When the original Scout,
it does lose half the cargo, but this isn't a cargo ship. This is a starter ship size. So you're not really going to be doing cargo trading anyways. You're losing 2 SCU total because the base has 4 SCU.
We've decided to replace the main.
So if I were buying a starter ship today, it would definitely be this one out of the 2 cutter variants.
And you'll see here
This one
we've
also comes with
added a radar
LTI.
dish to the top,
The base
which
cutter
relates
no longer
directly to the
does.
scanning gameplay that comes with this ship. In addition to that, we have a series of exterior bottom modifications to just push that flavor a little bit further. And you'll see here a transition between the default and the Scout, so you can clearly see the differences.
Mostly a new paint skin, but it does have a dish on top. That's the variance. Oh, different spoiler too.
On the interior, we've expanded the rear section of the ship in order to include a dedicated standing scanning station, which will show up here in a second. Along with that, we've also increased the space in the rear to house the larger components that are necessary to support that gameplay. Now, expanding the rear did encroach into the habitation,
So
but
it
we
does
were able
have
to rearrange
larger
the components
components?
in that room so that nothing was lost in the transition. And on the cockpit, it's a
What parts did they size up? Website's running a lot better now. It was really sluggish earlier today. They have the variance matrix pulled up. Fixed now. Expand all these. Okay, radar obviously bigger on the Scout. Makes total sense. Sized up cooler. Basically same weaponry. I think these are still okay. So small quantum fuel tank has 2 of them. Both do. Undefined jump module. The base has a cutter. I don't imagine the Scout will be much different because I think that part would stay the same in a scanning ship. But yeah, obviously bigger radar, better cooler. Those two make sense. Everything else is pretty much the same, at least according to the variant matrix. Which, you know, could be totally different.
same cockpit that you all know and love from the original cutter. From this view, you'll more clearly see the shift that we had to make in the rear in order to support the gameplay that we're trying to achieve.
Okay, yeah. So internal layout's a bit different.
We're really proud of what the team has done with this ship, and we hope you like the Scout as much as we do.
If you're on the Pipeline Discord, I'm pretty sure they have all the info about what that third variant is going to be. The Scout is not a surprise to me. I knew about it a while ago.
What are the main differences between the base? It is a variant after all. So the first big difference is the radar.
Oh, I should have just waited. They were going to talk about it.
And to accommodate, to supply that, it comes with a size 2 power plant and a size 2.
I really like the green. The green looks really good to me on this ship.
As well as the dedicated scan terminal that Ella mentioned.
I think I like it on this cutter more than I do the Vanguard,
crazier.
which
And
is a
unfortunately,
military
it has
ship.
lost
It
2
should
SU
be
compared to the base. So
should
it
have a
has
green
2
variant,
SU
but I
cargo
think it looks
capacity
really good here.
instead of the 3. Now, what we also want to do is talk a little bit more about the future of scanning, if people are interested in hearing about that.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
So what is the future of scanning? We'll touch on it lightly. At the moment, there are 2 main ways for you to interact with the scanning gameplay loops. The first one's obviously the scan, and the second one's the ping system. Both of these are going to be merged into a single system known as a scan wave. When you send the scan wave out, if you get any successful pings, what will happen is it will immediately populate your HUD with an AR marker, giving you information about what you've been able to scan, as well as starting to give you far more interesting information than you get now, rather than just the name of the ship. The underlying system will work
Right
on
now
the
you
signature
can
system,
find
similar to
out
what it
what
does today.
cargo they have, what weapons they
And
have.
there are 2 main scans.
I mean, it's
There is
not
the
just the
quick
name of the
scan.
ship.
Quick scan is just a low version of it. It has a very small impact on your own signal output. So if you want to stay a little bit more covert and potentially not be seen looking at something you shouldn't, you can use that one instead. The main benefits are small increase to your actual passive detection range, as well as being able to detect things that maybe are a little fainter than you should be able to see. This has a decent amount of cutting through interference, but not phenomenal. The other version is the charge scan. The charge scan is the big scan. Now, this will actually allow you to detect things up to quantum boost range, which is way, way further than the current passive detection range. And not only that, but it'll actually drop a marker allowing you to jump straight to that location for whatever it is that you found.
Oh, nice. Okay, that part's really cool.
You don't want to be jumping.
So if I understand what he's saying, passive detection, that's going to be like within 11 kilometers, right? That's where we can scan stuff right now. But quantum boost range, that could be really big. Does that mean in the realm of gigameters, or does that mean like hundreds of kilometers? Because very, very interesting. You could be scanning something it's like 20,000 out. Would be pretty cool. That would give scanning ships a definite reason for existing.
Blind. And as I said, it's going to give you way more information than it did before. Some examples, but
yes,
not limited to this, are things like whatever it is it charging a quantum drive? Is it firing? Is the shields generating? Does it have any shields? Is it perhaps charging an EMP? Maybe it's got a snare up trying to catch you. It gives you that additional information so you can make the decision whether you actually want to get to that location. That's just a brief glimpse into the
that sounds like quite the UI challenge.
Right now, the Cutter Scout is actually in 321. It's available. If you go to that address or go to our website, QR code, it's actually in the universe right now. You don't need to wait for a patch for that. I've been Mark.
And I'm Elwin. And before we step off, if you haven't had a chance to get one of these hats, this one in particular is signed by 7 members of the ship development team. And if you want it, during the meet and greet, if you can tell me the name of the 7 people who signed this, all of who are in attendance here, by the way, today, the first person to give me those names gets to keep it. Other than that, thanks, guys, and have a great SitCon.
Small hit for you. John Crew is one of those names. Fantastic, guys, everyone. We're going to hand you back to John and Ben. They've got a few more surprises for you.
Short deployable is always great. I wish every ship were like that. Concepts are a bit more painful for everybody.
Right. So, as Mark said there, scanning stuff is coming in the future. We didn't show a lot of it because it does sort of turn up in some other teams' panels, and we didn't want to steal their glory a day early. So I highly recommend sticking around for both the UI one and the flight one tomorrow. So, we've talked about the past, we've talked about the present. Let's talk about the future.
Yes.
So, here is a big block of squares that represents our backlog.
Which this view actually surprised me.
Is a ship or a vehicle.
I think we often focus on all the unreleased ships. So we focus a lot on these gray ones. I think we do sometimes forget all of these ones. So this is it's a good graphic. It helps put in perspective how many ships we do have. And I mean, they have made a lot of progress, right? There is still some really big ships on this backlog. Maybe that's one thing that is hidden here is, you know, if you were to size these squares relative to their ship size, then we would probably see a lot more relative gray compared to the blue here. But quantity-wise, it would seem that they're doing pretty good.
All those gray ones are the ones that we have not done yet. The dark blue ones are the ones that will be in your hands by the end of the year. So we have
over 200 vehicles for us to support as a vehicle content team. For those of you that are trying to do the maths
That's
in
a
your
lot
head
of
right now,
vehicles
going,
to
that's
balance.
the wrong number. This includes every single vehicle that we've ever shown to you, whether that's in a Squadron 42 visual tease or like a trailer. Some of them are obviously Squadron exclusives. Some of them are going to be NPC exclusives. We still have to support them all.
I guess some of the FanDuel ships would be area exclusive, right?
And we do a lot of work to support them.
I don't think of what else would be.
Not the only thing we do. We obviously introduce new content like the Mirai Fury. We deliver previous promised content. And as you'll see today and tomorrow, we do a lot of gameplay support. So obviously we help out. Ships are like the heroes
Idris
of the
might
game.
not be the ship to show
Resource
for
Network,
delivering promised content.
Panel, how that's going to impact ships. You will have seen, if you've been paying super close attention, some UI elements to do with maps. Stay tuned for that.
Very exciting stuff.
So we do a lot of work across all aspects of both projects. And to do all that, we need to do a few things.
Okay, yeah, so John's talked a bit about the backlog. I'm going to kind of take a little bit, how are we going to deliver this? So in April 2023, we actually kicked off a new ship team in our newest studio, Turbulent, based out of Montreal.
And Montreal has been taking names as far as getting content out. They've done a lot of the new environments. They really kick some butt.
Vehicle artists, one vehicle designer, one embedded QA tester, and one producer. And that kind of gives us everything we need to start bringing content out of another location. And it also means that we now have kind of reps globally.
Discord on accident. Didn't mean to do that.
Studios. What's the really nice thing about that is it kind of opens up a new pool of kind of talent that we can pick from. And it should really help us to deliver some more content to the game. And you've actually just seen the first two ships out of that studio. So the Scout variant and the Zeus are both being developed by our Montreal team.
Really cool stuff.
Yeah, they're doing great. We're going to look a little bit more in depth at the kind of the art team and how we've grown over the years. You can see from this graph, this is our kind of like live numbers of how many vehicle artists we have dedicated to the project. You can see there's a nice trajectory going up. And with more team members, that also means we get kind of like not just more.
Well, it's definitely not that one. $600. 695 staff. Let's just use that as a. Oh, as of July 2023, 1,100 CIG staff are working on Star Citizen, not counting third-party partners. We spare a few more than. I mean, this is, yes, it is an upward trajectory. But can we not put 100 people on vehicle art, vehicle development? I don't know. I'm not a business major. I don't know how to run a company, but it just seems like if ships are such a pivotal part of your game, then why so few? I don't understand that part.
People to throw at stuff, but we get more experience, we get more knowledge, and that's that allows us to kind of tackle our larger, kind of more complex ships. You will notice there in 2022 there is a little dip.
Yep.
And unfortunately, when that happens, that has kind of real consequences on what we are able to do as a team. I think less people, so less power to put on stuff, but also some of that knowledge leaves us. With that leads us to have to make some kind of.
Okay. Some of that knowledge leaves us. there's probably a little better way to phrase that, because I think there is a bit more built into that phrase than is initially apparent. Um, think about the projects that you've done in your life, right? You kind of get into a groove, and no one understands the project quite like you do, right? I do some freelance engineering projects on the side. I do a lot of them as a hobby, and I often run into the problem where it really takes a lot of explanation to get someone to have an equivalent level of understanding that I do about the project. Now, part of that is inherent because, right, like I'm an engineering student, I'm working with clients that are not. But the other part of that is because I've put so much work into it already, I have a natural momentum in that project that other people aren't going to share. And so when he talks about losing that knowledge, it's not just that you lost 7 people, but you also lost the inertia that they carried with them. And that can really hinder development of specific elements of a project. I know I've seen this part before, so I know he's about to start talking about the Banu Merchantman. We saw that went into active development, and then we just didn't hear anything about it. Well, this is a big part of that. You had these people who had this inertia moving into the Banu Merchantman, and then they left. I think they left for Star Atlas, the NFT crypto bro version of Star Citizen that morphologists work on. Oh, Schlag says ships are important, but the tech and gameplay and design overall gives them purpose. That's true. Ship design is probably a small part of the overall ship building. And if that's true, then there is probably a lot more people that are indirectly working on ships that don't get included in the design, testing, and artist category here, which could be fair. I still feel like we could spare to have a few more, though.
Pretty hard and heavy decisions about what we're working on. And I think most recently and probably most well known is the Banu Merchantman.
Yep.
Yep.
It hurts.
Now,
I know there's a lot of people that are really hurt by the abandonment here.
Before that happened in 2022.
So this doesn't reflect. This reflects what had been developed as of 2022. And it's not super clear from the way he stated that if there's been additional work on the Banu Merchantman, or if this is just what they had in 2022. But I would like to think that this is what it looked like before those people left. And then there's been maybe some more work done on it, getting some more of those textures in. But you can tell, I mean, they were starting to put materials on this, so it was getting into the gray box part of the development. For those that are newer to Star Citizen, Banu Merchantman has been a long talked about large capital ship. It's basically a traveling Walmart. It's supposed to have a kind of integrated shopping center built within the ship. So it is cargo and trade focused, but you're supposed to be able to do the trade directly on the ship as well, which makes it a little different from your typical transport vehicle. It's always interesting to me to think from a philosophy point of view, what does an alien ship look like when... I mean, the only way to know what an alien ship would look like would be to see an alien ship, right? But we don't have that capability, so we have alien ships as designed by humans. So it makes it so that, yeah, Banu is unfamiliar to us, but it's more of like the Picasso approach to designing a ship as opposed to actually being an alien aesthetic. It's strange and unfamiliar, but not necessarily alien because it's still designed by. I like seeing all these organic shapes, the flowing lines, the curves. It's definitely very different from the rest of what we have in Star Citizen. Hear that little bit of guitar going on in the background? This is probably the best version of this song. That's good. That one comes in kind of hard. I like that music.
So that video shows, where
This poor guy, he looks so nervous. This is not a fun part of the job. He's got to come up on stage and basically tell people, we've got work done on the Banning Merchantman. No, it's not ready. And he's basically the bearer of bad news, and that sucks, man. I feel for this guy. You can tell it's weighing heavily on his soul right now.
we got up to with the Merchantman, you can see we'd finished white box. We were kind of into grey box. Some areas were further than others. And I think one of the best things about working at a company like Cloud Imperium Games is that we're able to be pretty honest and pretty open with our development. One of the biggest questions we get is, what's up with the Merchantman? Where is it? Why did it stop? And the Merchantman brought a lot of unique...
The framing of this could have been done a little better, I think.
It was a...
Take another pause here, because you watch that video and you feel like, oh man, are they getting ready to say that the Banu Merchantman is straight to flyable as of now? No. Sorry to break it to you, they're not about to say that. They're about to say that it's not ready. But the lead up felt like it was building up to some grand announcement. And unfortunately, this guy has to come on stage and kill everyone's hopes and dreams.
Completely new art style, something that's very, very different from what we normally do with our human manufacturers. I think, we could have paused other ships. We could have moved some of our other artists onto the Merchantman. But with the kind of exodus of our kind of senior team in 2022, we didn't just lose people, we lost a lot of the knowledge that went into building out that white box and really kind of delivering that art style. What we decided to do at the time is, rather than try and rush something out and just get something out to get it done, we looked at where we were, and for us, the most important thing was growing our team back up. We wanted to invest in our team and use our seniors and our kind of managers to help get us up to the point where we can tackle multiple large and capital ships at one time. I think the graph previously kind of showed that we've got the head numbers now, and now it's about onboarding our new staff members. It's about skilling them up and getting them to the point. And I would absolutely love to be stood here on stage and going, yeah, look at the Merchantman, it's amazing, like it's done. But we're not at that point just yet.
Oh no! There it is. Yeah.
And I absolutely
feel bad. Like I said, I feel bad for this guy. He's got to come and give everybody the bad news.
Well, I just wanted to be open and honest as to where we are up to with the development.
Yeah. To add to that, it is probably the most question I get asked at any event, and I really want to get it done, get it out for you guys, but we don't want to give you a half-baked thing. We want to give you a really great product that we can all be proud of, and it's delivered alongside gameplay.
Which is good. I would rather have feature-complete ships released than ships that remain unusable in their intended form. The Reclaimer is just now getting salvage gameplay added to it. It still has salvage gameplay to come. But man, it sat as a big brick for a really long time.
So, we plan to deliver the Idris alongside the squadron, and that doesn't mean just the M. We're going to deliver the.
So, the real question, though, is Squadron 42 when? And I think that that is the biggest question on everyone's mind. If we don't have some idea tomorrow, people are going to be really upset because we've been banking on. There's been so many predictions that there's going to be some Squadron 42 release date announced tomorrow. It could be, a very specific date. Is the one extreme. It could be, holiday season type deal or summer. It could be just a year, but some indicator as to when Squadron 42 is going to release and some demonstration, because it has been a long time since we've had any of that.
The M, the P, and the K kit all together in one delivery. Javelin owners, I'm afraid you're going to have to wait a bit longer after that, is obviously the bigger ship players can own.
I don't think anyone was surprised by that.
Looked at what is left to
Javelin is absolutely massive.
There will be modularity with it. And yeah, that will come after Squadron releases. And those of you who also have the Vandal Scythe, Glaive, Blade, after Squadron releases, you will also get the updated models as well for that.
Which, I don't know, I'm kind of torn. Because this is what you have in game right now. Let's see, where's it? But here's a decent view of it. So it definitely looks a lot different today. What's actually going to be in the game does not look at all like this. But this has some nostalgia built into it. I think that, yeah, so this kind of shows the evolution. The Vandal ships now, they have a lot more of that same kind of alien, organic sweeping line. It still looks a lot sharp and deadlier compared. Look, it looks a lot more sharp and deadly compared to the Banu ships. But before it looked kind of spindly. Now it's a little bit more beefed up. Looks a bit more solid. But I think it would be cool if they gave players like the option. Probably not going to happen. It's probably because it is blending a lot of different ideas, but maybe the Asperia, maybe Asperia releases a designed by humans scythe, and then also a more true to form Vandal scythe. Would be cool. Here's a full color photo, so you can see it's a lot more solid than the spindly arms that we have in the verse today.
Right. Next.
Okay. No kind of ship panel at a CitizenCon event is kind of done without looking at what's coming up next. Previously, we used to do these kind of like silhouettes, but we kind of always felt they were a little bit predictable. We ended up just making most of them anyway. So
yeah, it would be like we vote on B and then do B, C, D, A.
Make our next large mining ship. And you're going to see more about that at IEE next month. But again, this year, we decided just to mix things up a little bit with how we wanted to deliver this. So you're about to see in a minute.
I really want to think that that's the Orion
ships
that they're talking about for IAE.
Hopefully, it will show you some that you don't recognize.
But I don't know. That ship is really, really big.
Take a look. Give us a guess at what you think they might be, because we'd love to, hear your input.
And I will just add to that as well.
No, it was supposed to be
everything you see in this video and more in the next 12 months.
All right, so next 12 months. That is some kind of hover bike there. That's the X1. That one's very obvious. Okay, you're saying large RSI mining ship? Are they working on the Orion? Because they're saying that they're working on RSI ships overall right now, but the Orion is huge. That's is the big capital mining. So it's downscaled from the Orion. This is probably not it. Except Mark. It's not going to let me open that. We haven't seen it yet, have we? Something between Mole and Orion. Okay. All right. Well, I like RSI, so I'm always happy to see more RSI ships. RSI, Aegis, and Crusader and Origin are probably my top 4 brands. This is can't tell. But this has got to be the Zeus, right? It's about the right size. That's another Mirai. No, that's too big to be a Mirai or a Fury. What is this one? It's very possibly another RSI ship because they talk about in the next segment that they're working on RSI as like a family. But what is this one? And what is this one? I think this one is the Zeus, but this looks like it has a drop-down cargo bay, and the Zeus didn't look like it had that. But it looks to be about the right size that I would expect. And they've got these frosted glass sections. I know they do that intentionally, but it's frustrating. What is this one? Okay, this is the hacking ship. The Vulcan? This one could be the Galaxy. Maybe. It's hard to tell. I don't know, guys. That's the Retaliator. That one's obvious. Okay, and that's the Polaris. Everyone's real happy to hear about the Polaris. Yeah. Upscaled Mirai fighter with a quantum drive. It looked big to be a fighter, though, didn't it? Let's go back to that one. Yeah, this looks massive for a fighter. I don't think it's a fighter. I think it's something bigger. Maybe this is the mining ship. Maybe this is an RSI take on mining. Because if they're going to announce that at IAE, then maybe that's what that's going to be. Could it be the Raylan? Yeah, attack. I think that's how you spell it. Maybe you're right. That might be it. This is what they originally showed for the folding, but this doesn't mean anything because everything changes. But it is supposed to be bigger than Hercules. This is quite the puzzle. Went too far. RSI links. Pretty sure. Not quite sure where they're showing that because we do have that one. Cargo. I really think that this is the Zeus. I don't think this is big enough to be the Raylan. There's probably something on the Pipeline Discord, but I can't be free to check that right now. Oh, it could be a medical Ursa or a medical variant. That's true. I'm glad to see the Retaliator on here though, because it is supposed to be a modular ship. It is not currently. It is just a bomber. But you're supposed to be able to swap out that bomb bay for different stuff. So maybe that's what they mean by putting the Retaliator here. And then the Polaris.
I don't know if you noticed, but there was quite a big ship at the end of that video.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to confirm, that is the Polaris.
Yeah.
Yep. One person in the audience is freaking out.
We've done a lot of talking. We'll do a bit more talking about it.
So yeah, okay. Just wanted to touch again on like, why are we doing an RSI ship? Like, what is with that? So the thing about doing another RSI ship is that we've got a really well-established art style for RSI in our universe.
I think this is a really good direction to move as well. It makes sense to work on them as families because then you can build up that momentum. You get used to using those same assets. You can pump these out faster.
The Polaris is not tackling it as one ship, but actually we want to tackle, well, anyone that knows our backlog knows we have a number of large RSI ships on there.
Yep.
And our kind of plan is that we tackle that as a family of ships. We don't just tackle one of them and then we go off and do something else for 6 months, a year, come back and do another one, something else, come back and do another one. We want to tackle them all together, one after the other. And what that really allows us to do is just kind of streamline our development process. We're able to, for our more common areas of the ship, we're able to build kits that we're confident in, that we can reuse and we can make the most out of them. And then that allows us to focus our development time and our efforts really on the much more unique and the important and exciting areas of each ship. Tackling them as a family kind of allows us to expedite their development. We leverage the experience that we've got within the team. And it just allows us to, like I say, streamline everything. So first up, we've got the Polaris. Next up, we've got the Galaxy. Then we've got the Perseus. And that kind of closes out our most of our large RS.
Pause. Go back. Show me my baby.
First up, we've got the Polaris. Next up, we've got the Galaxy. Then we've got the Perseus.
Best ship ever. The angriest Space Dorito. I'm so excited to get this one into my hands. I can't believe that they said that this one's coming out this year. That's going to be so cool. I'm excited. But yeah, it totally makes sense what they're saying as far as like work on them in a family. You get used to an art style. It's harder to switch from that style to another one, which is what you're having to do when you're switching manufacturers. So I really hope that this has the effect that they're saying, that they're able to get these out a lot faster. I can see the logic behind it. I just hope it pans out that way.
Yes, and that kind of closes out most of our large RSI ships. And then we can see what we want to take on after that.
Well, I think that's pretty much everything we want to talk about today. However, before we go, we're going to... Torsten's already stolen the predictable joke here, so we'll do one last thing to show you guys. So, let's have a look.
I don't know what joke he's talking about, though. Did I totally miss some zinger that he dropped?
At the current state of the Polaris, in engine, in its white box state.
The white box comes before gray box. So this is still like defining spaces, figuring out how you're going to organize these different areas, these different volumes, how they're going to fit together, and figuring out the navigational aspect of it within the ship. So there's a lot of missing detail that will be here in later iterations. Looks very plain Jane right now, but this is what we expect. Now, the interesting thing about the Polaris, though, is it's a torpedo boat, where right now torpedoes don't have much that they can really be used for. They're going to show it against an Idris here. Yeah, that Idris. And it definitely gets some work done, but besides the Miles Eckhart mission, what do we have to use as a target for the Polaris? Like seeing the Scorpius pop out, the X-Wing. So presumably, 4 hits from a Polaris and you're down as an Idris. So it could make the Miles Eckhart missions really easy. And do Idrisi show up in the extreme risk bounties? Maybe they'll add another level where you do take on Idrises. We're going to need more to hit for the Polaris to be viable.
Whoa! Did you guys see that? That was amazing! Give it up for the ship team, everybody.
Yeah.
That was amazing. We're back on the show floor at CitizenCon 2953.
Show floor is cool, but it's not as interesting as the other stuff. All the graphical stuff going on. I really want to take a look at the star map. Yeah. Okay, critical service beacons have Idrises. Okay, that's what I was thinking. I know that there was a mission type. It's not the extreme risk bounties, but the critical service beacons do have Idrisi. Idrisi. I like Idrisi. I'm going to stick with Idrisi. But the Polaris will really come into its own once we do have enough server population that we can actually do more regular fleet battles. Right now it takes a huge level of organization in order to get something like that going, but there is a point in the future hopefully where big fleet battles will be much more frequent and you can just jump in, fight for whoever you want, and participate that way. Until then, I think the Polaris is going to be quite expensive to run because you're going to be... Ammunition is one thing, right? If you're using ballistic ammo, you have to refuel or restock. But if you're using energy weapons, those don't really have a cost aside from power. Torpedoes, they're going to be really expensive. They also didn't show the Idris even try to shoot the torps down yet. And they are going to be massive targets. If you're a military ship, it would be expected that you have PDCs, point defense cannons, ready to shoot down large projectiles coming at you. The Idris has many, many turrets. It should totally be able to shoot torpedoes down if it's paying attention. So it definitely is a sales pitch. It's a cool ship, but I don't know that it's a good ship for quite a while from now. I think this is what a Banu is supposed to look like, so that's a pretty cool cosplay. I think there was people T-posing in this part, which I wanted to shout them out. Okay, maybe it's after the navigation part.
And if I'm lucky, I get to do some pro.
Guys, this is Bone. Bone is very patient. He's a great guy, but I think he gets whipped around a lot in this presentation. I feel sorry for him. No, well, okay. Sorry makes me sound like I'm looking down on him. It's not that I pity him. It's just I feel sympathy for him. All right.
Programming from time to time.
Bone's really
My
good.
previous
He's a really
citizen
patient
con,
guy,
one in
and
the
he's showing
flesh,
off some
in
really cool
Manchester.
tech for us today.
I talked about UI tech with my developed.
I am going to skip through his part a little bit though because it's just intro.
Station, enormous
We
amount
kind of know how navigation works in space,
online
at least in Star Citizen.
Well, that's where we come in, fortunately.
The first UI you come in
UI
contact
guys.
with is your visor.
And we do
That's what
this
he's
in loads
introducing
of
right now.
ways that you see already, whether it's your vehicle MFDs or the hood.
And you can
or
actually see the new
kiosks,
UI in the
where you get
visor.
your
It's just
spaceship,
not super
or
clear
you
until you see
trade
it from the perspective
commodities,
that you're
buy
supposed to.
weapons, and all manner of diegetic UIs that you see. Diegetic meaning like things in the world that you can interact with. But our first real opportunity is through the helmet visor display. Now, the visor display gives you vital information about your status and the environment around you. But this...
Man, that is a flashback, right? The old Arena Commander 1.0 UI. That's making me feel old. I wonder if we can find a full-size, full-screen version of that. Back in 2014, guys. And that's kind of it. Not really, that's only part of it. This probably shows the most complete view. Old stuff going on right here, man. If you know what that looks like, you're ancient.
This display has gone through many iterations over the years, and it's been built upon and adapted. And I don't know if who remembers Arena Commander 1.0 that came out.
And you can see they have like all your weapons listed out. I mean, when it's a UI that's strictly for combat, so it makes a little more sense. But when you start to think about all the other things that we do in ships, it's way too much space dedicated to just combat.
Get added and all these new things. The visor grows and we put things on it to show you, different statuses and like tells you all about what's going on.
These screens are always funny to me on the little guns because sometimes they don't work half the time.
Focus. There's so much we need to know, and when we need to know it is important. So how do we zero in on what's important and at what time? So leaning on this technology that Zane and I and the UI Tech team wrote a few years ago, we're trying to take a smarter perspective. And
these ones were Flash-based UI, if I remember correctly. Now we have building block UI, which is their new proprietary tech for implementing new UI elements. But back in this day, it was all Flash-based, which made it very difficult to iterate on. Building block is supposed to make it so that they can iterate again and again and again without having to break everything.
I'm not going to tell you about that. I'm going to invite Simon Bursey onto the stage, and he can tell you more about it. Simon? You on this? Hey, everybody.
Okay, so Star Citizen, as you know, is a big project which has evolved over its lifetime. Early on in the project, we added the visor, which is the display you see on your helmet when you're walking around the universe in first person. Because the game is always expanding, we often add new gameplay features, and with those come new UI. The various teams slotted pieces into whatever place made sense at the time.
We see a lot of these symbols in game right now. A lot of them have yet to pop up. They show this example later on, but this is obviously for radiation with the triangular symbol there. HPA, not sure what that would be. HPA, first thing that comes to my mind is airsoft, which is high pressure air. Maybe that's what it is you're in a high pressure environment, which would kind of make sense with the arrows. I could see that. I would imagine this is some kind of toxicity based on the atmosphere. I don't think we see that yet, though. Well, might be, actually. I'm never taking off my helmet to check. And that's actually the interesting part. How would you see this if you're not wearing a helmet? Inches of mercury? Air pressure? Is that what HPA is? I mean, I could see it as air pressure for sure. But INHG is the unit, isn't it? Yeah. Hectopascals or something like that. Yeah, I don't know what hecto means. Hecto, 100. Hectometer. Okay. Like centimeter is 100. Hecto would be the opposite of that. Um, I know some of my metric, but I don't know all of them. I only know the most important ones. Kilo and mega and giga.
Time, but this eventually meant the view became very complex. As you can see, the current live UI can get very cluttered. We have lots of information competing for your attention, so you don't always know where to look.
Well, we also, in spite of being cluttered, we also have a lot of missing information.
As you can probably tell, the UI team wanted to do a redesign.
The Scorpius, for instance, these views of your target ship are some of the most important things you can have. If I could, it would be just like in the old days, my ship, target ship. Well, for you guys, it's swapped. So on the top left of my screen, I'd have my ship. On the top right, I'd have their ship. And then power and shields on the bottom screens. But right now you have to pick which half of that you want to display on the Scorpius because it only has 2 MFDs. Hectopascals or something like that is one of the barometric settings you can select on aircraft. So do we actually use HPA? Oh. I mean, it is hectopascal. Schlag would definitely be the one to know as far as aircraft pressure. Okay. So 5.5 kilometers above sea level, that's definitely within the typical flying altitudes. So it could be high pressure. Or not high pressure, hectopascals. I guess that would actually be lower pressure if you're higher up, huh?
We wanted to improve the player's experience.
What's the baseline? Let me... Pascals at sea level. Okay, so it's 101 kilopascals. So HPA would be a way of measuring stuff that's significantly smaller than this. Okay.
By presenting the important information in a clear way. We also needed to create a new framework that supports all the
I think this
existing
was an
features
accident. This
and
looks
allows teams
very
to add more
dark.
in future. And finally, we wanted to bring the visuals up to the high standard we're setting for Squadron 42 and soon the Star Citizen persistent universe. So how do we go about that? I believe user interface should always be a collaboration with the teams who build the underlying features. So we worked closely with them on a new layout, keeping some pieces
Just gonna skip forward a little bit.
to take all that complex worst case for regions. I've told you about
He talks about it on a high level, but we really want to see the
as you can see,
actual
Bones driving.
interaction. First time I saw this mission, it makes me think that no Russian, like in Call of Duty, because you have these people cowering.
Okay, welcome to the Orison Providence platform. You may have spotted it earlier.
I would love to actually see missions take place in the big environments like
developed
this.
and tested in Squadron 42. But you'll be happy to know all the UI you see today is going to make its way to Star Citizen. But this is secret UEE Navy tech, so we'll give it a different look for the persistent universe.
Okay, so the first elements of the UI that we see are a compass. Compass is always a welcome thing, but we also see, I want to make sure I say the right thing. Attitude. I think it's attitude. Not like from psychology. Yeah, so I think the right term is attitude. Basically, it's your angle relative to the horizon on the vertical plane. I don't know. I don't like the idea of having that because I don't see much utility in it. You don't think in degrees when you're moving around your head. We do think in, you know, relative to cardinal directions because that's how we navigate large areas. But if we're trying to declutter, I don't think this is necessary. I could see it for EVA environments, but not walking around like this.
Okay, when we get a new mission objective, it appears in the top right of the screen. And you can see that our first mission is
this looks much better than our current objective indicators, so I'm really happy to see that.
Reality marker system, so we can follow the yellow on-screen marker to get to our objective. At the top of the screen, you'll also see the compass. Okay, Bone, let's head towards the objective. We were already
Okay, remember what I said. Bone is a really patient, good guy. I think he gets ripped around a lot in this presentation. He's the one controlling the character, and they're telling him what to do. You're going to see in just a minute exactly what I'm talking about.
You're already happy with the way the player status widgets worked, showing you contextual information about your character and environment. So we've given them some visual polish and added a few new ones. The environmental radiation here is quite high, and over time, it will wear down our suit and damage the player.
Which is a really cool idea.
The radiation there. I think somebody's damaged a pipe, so how are we going to fix it? If we were in space, we could use a salvage and repair ship. Luckily, UEE have some advanced portable tech. Bone, please equip the military multi-tool.
They just casually throw this in here, but that is a totally new multi-tool.
Squadron 42 has various modes, one of which gives us the ability to salvage and repair while on foot. Okay, Bone, let's use the multi-tool to repair that pipe.
This seems like a true multi-tool in the sense that it's got multiple things equipped at once, but they just casually throw this in here. How do I get one of these?
Okay.
You can see that as soon as it's repaired,
the radiation levels
radiation goes down, and this will start to decrease as well.
So let's head into the scene. Go on, Bone. Let's walk forwards a bit. Okay.
Go, Bone.
To fix the damage, we need to find the enemies that caused it. While we're on the way, you'll notice that the on-foot emissions at the top of the screen. We're emitting infrared,
sound,
electromagnetic radiation, and also sound. If any of these go
infrared,
higher than the
sound, and
background levels,
electromagnetic.
it will be easier for the enemies to detect us. Let's take a look at the bad guys.
I think
though.
we have something similar to this in game right now. I never knew that that's what these were, but it does make sense. And here it seems like it's updating a lot more quickly. I don't see them moving around as much when I'm actually playing in game currently.
As part of the emissions and radar tech, we also have the ability to scan while we're on foot. If we tap the button, we can do a quick scan to reveal everything, to reveal info about anything that's in our view currently. Okay, Bone, let's do a quick scan. This highlights whatever's in our line of sight.
All right, so I really like this idea, but I would make a few tweaks. I would keep the chevrons above their head for much longer. I think it's fine to get rid of that biometric scan type data because I think it does actually occlude a lot of what you want to see. It's kind of like in Halo Infinite, you have the outline that follows your opponents, and it makes it hard to actually see what kind of armor they're wearing, which is one of the points of pride playing as a Spartan in Halo. So I'm fine with that disappearing after a second, but I think keep the chevrons up because why is your sensor data just stopping tracking them, I guess. That's the part that doesn't quite make sense to me. I would keep that up
There's also
longer.
some risk and reward to the scanning system. By holding the button, we can charge our scanner, and this reveals enemies through walls using a more powerful wave. But it does cause a spike in our emissions, which makes us easier to detect.
That's another point that he brings up that we don't get a super clear answer on. Are these enemies putting off the same kind of stuff that we can detect? Is it possible that if they make a bunch of noise, we can detect them without having to do a scan?
Okay, let's do a charge scan, please, Bone. Okay. We can also see the augmented reality box outs, which give us a summary of what we've detected. Okay, let's have a look at our weapons. Let's get the gun out, please, Bone. Okay, we wanted to help the player see their equipment during combat, so we upgraded the weapons display. As well as the ammo in the gun and the spare mags in their pockets, we also now show the player's explosives and med pens.
So that all looks great.
Okay, let's fight the bad guys.
Let's see, let's go back. It reminds me a lot of the UI that you see in Insurgency Sandstorm and other harder FPSs like that. I think World War III does the same thing. But here you see, like, he's got 60 bullets in reserve, right? And they're split across 2 magazines. I would imagine that as he's shooting, if he reloads before it's totally empty, we'll see the number change, and then we'll see a magazine that's mostly empty over here. But it's a pretty good improvement. Currently, we just have the total ammunition that you have in reserve and what you have currently equipped. So it's definitely more information than what we currently have, but it's done in a more intelligent way, so it's more space efficient.
Explosives and med pens. Okay, let's fight the bad guys.
Very brave to use a grenade.
There you can see our new
So
explosive
they have gotten
marker,
better in time.
designed to help you spot deadly grenades, mines, and missiles more easily. Did you do it? Okay. Well done, Bone.
All right, yeah, see? Now we got 31 in reserve, but we've got a nearly empty magazine. And I want whatever armor this guy's wearing, because it is great. if I got hit that many times in
Success.
mission myself, I would
Okay.
be dead from
There's
like
no more
DCing.
hostiles nearby, so let's take a moment to talk about the Mobiglass. The Mobiglass is the Star Citizen equivalent of your smartphone. It has various apps that hook into the gameplay systems. Like all the UI we're showing you today, we wanted to redesign it with the player's usability in mind, to make it look good and also lay the groundwork for future expansion. Let's bring up the Mobiglass, please, Bone.
This part looks really good. We've kind of seen this before, though, so I'm going to skip forward ahead a little bit. What we really care about is some of the other
Throughout
stuff.
human history, as we
Pulled this guy from a local Aeropostal.
of the unknown. This is why
Photography is important. I agree.
Your venture.
But now we'll have a way to go and basically download
Let's
maps
go ahead
from
and activate
kiosks, which is pretty cool.
What you see on screen, zoom out a bit, what you see on screen is a fully live 3D representation of the environment that we are in.
And it looks really good.
You can see callouts of the various default points of interest. You can pan the map around, you can rotate it, and you can even cycle the floors that you're on to isolate the visuals of the floor that you're on.
You can
So
see a little
our current objective,
UI call out
it's much more interesting
decrease
if we
floor
can
and
actually
increase
take
our
this
Q and E.
on the go. So let's download it to our data bank. As you'll notice, we now have the
A mini map.
representation of the environment in the upper left corner of our visor.
And it's a really good looking mini map too. It's
Now, the thing
very
that's really
detailed but
interesting
not
to note
cluttered.
At this point is not all environments will have such a convenient kiosk available. You may encounter rundown settlements, or you might come across a cave that no one else has ever set foot on before. What will happen in this instance is your radar will incrementally update your map, and it will incrementally reveal your environment and save that to your data bank. So you kind of reveal it incrementally.
Which sounds like
So
very similar to what you'd see in an
this
RTS type
map,
game.
what we see in the
Everything
upper
starts
left
off in black fog, but as you
corner of our
explore it, your
visor
map
is
gets
not
bigger.
really just a map. What it really is actually data. It's our radar. And we can see contacts on our radar as we scan. And it's basically what we have available in stored in our data bank. So because we have the location data saved to our data bank, we can obviously access that via our Mobiglass. So let's go ahead and pull it up in our Mobiglass, because this is going to get really interesting.
This looks really good. And it's got callouts built into the map, which is something that is on surprisingly few competitive FPS games. I mean, you would think it would be there, but this is really tidy UI. I really like this.
Floors and marker callouts of our objective and also where we are. I would like to talk a little bit about the tech behind this. What you're seeing is not a pre-baked asset, and I want to reiterate that because all of our environments can be very dynamic, and they can change. They can take damage. Perhaps economic shifts might cause changes in the environment, and we can't export totally custom assets. So what we've done is we collaborated with our graphics team to enable us to render the environment in this way. And what it is we're actually whitelisting objects that we render and excluding everything that we don't need to render. So,
and that's an important point. So right now you can see they've got whitelisted basically walkways, corridors, and obviously these green are doors, right? What else can we whitelist though, and can we do it selectively? They don't touch on that in this demonstration, but I think that that is something that would be very valuable. We're going to see in a few moments how that applies to a spaceship. And I want to see, for instance, where are the different seats on the ship, right? If I'm looking for a bridge or a command seat where I can control the ship and fly it, where do I find that? Where do I find different turrets? Where do I find those different items? They show that a little bit in the engineering gameplay, but where do I find that on the map? Okay. Other things is if you are on the big barge at Orison doing the Siege of Orison mission, they use cargo crates to create kind of a maze. So can you show cargo crates? Because that would also be another one. And if I'm on my Carrack, can I see the cargo that I have loaded onto it? That would be useful for me to know, see, which parts of my ship are loaded, stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that I think that they could add as filters for whitelisting that I really hope they do. If someone from CIG is watching this, please take this and run with it. I would love to see that. Also, loot boxes, right? That one could go a couple different ways. I mean, for one, you don't want to make treasure boxes or rare loot immediately obvious to players. But if I find a loot box and I open it, maybe we can mark that on my map so that now I know that it's there, and maybe that gives me a visual indicator. Oh yeah, I already opened this one. I'm good. Move on to the next one. That would be another one I'd like to see. If I do an FPS scan and I detect some mines that are going to hurt me, that would be another thing I'd like to see on the minimap. I would see those presumably in FPS view as well because I did just scan for them. But it'd be cool to see those indicate on the map. So there's a lot of stuff along those lines that I'd like to see as selectable filters.
So in our level markup, we basically have the designers and artists mark up only the bits that are necessary for the map. This lets us have a very compelling visual, but without much of the cost. So I think
I mean, if this is all we ever get, it is still a very big improvement.
Something very interesting.
Currently have, which is nothing.
You might look around on this map and note down certain areas that might look interesting that we might want to revisit later. We can see some doors on this map, and these doors are entities that are called out on the map, and they may change state. So there can be some doors which have a locked state, which they will display red. And doors that are open will be green. And there are other entity callouts that can happen in our map. So let's go ahead and find a location to put down a pin, please, Bone. Maybe that one. Maybe that door looks interesting.
Okay, so that little interaction, right? Bone's the one controlling the character. I think this guy's Zane because he's about to name the location Zane. He's saying, let's find a spot that looks interesting to put down a marker. So Bone's looking for something that's interesting to him, but he's not immediately finding it. So it's like, maybe that door. Let's put one on that door. It's just like, come on, be nice to Bone, guys. But they're short on time. I kind of get it. See, welcome Lunchbox. How you doing? I'm gonna be real. Engineering looks amazing. I can't wait to start my salvaging, repair, and parts dealer career in the new star map. I'm speechless. Being able to leave a beacon for myself makes the ability to leave a stash or open a shop possible. Yeah. And they talk about that a little more later on, and I'm definitely going to expand on that. There's so much that being able to leave a marker opens up. I'm going to take another quick break. I got to go get me some water. My mouth is really dry right now. So let's take 5, and we will be back in just a bit. This one. All right. Thank you for your patience. Getting started again here now.
Press T. So what we can do is set a marker, and we can customize the details of that marker. Now, what you'll notice as well, as we set markers, there's metadata that is encoded into each of these markers on top of the customized name that we can specify. So we can mark as many markers as we want in this map. And these are all saved to our data bank, and we can eventually share these markers and even sell these markers on the market. So
okay, what he just said is huge. The ability. So picture this: you make a bunch of markers, right? And you. Okay, let's frame it this way. Let's say you're doing a survey, right? You're on Daymar, and you're checking out a bunch of stuff. You find a massive rock that has quantanium, and it's 30%. It's the dream rock. It's not possible to find nowadays. You can make a marker for that and then sell it for a profit to someone. And then based on the quality of the information that you're leaving with this stuff, you're going to get, a different rating. Like, let's say, yeah, you find that rock, but you only put quantanium rock. Well, that doesn't really mean anything to someone, right? Is it because 0.01% quantanium, that's still quantanium, but it's not worth going and finding.
About this, we can't really talk about markers without mentioning data running.
So data running doesn't exist right now, but thanks to this, it could,
in exploration,
which is really big.
Whereas perhaps a miner might specialize in the equipment, and they make investments in their equipment. So you, as an explorer, might be in the business of going around and exploring and finding locations that are very valuable to other professions.
Okay, the lag behind the stream is not as big as I thought it was. I guess somehow I just clicked that and sent
coming
it
up with the
backwards
data
in time.
And yeah, so it's very important. We can basically, when you name your markers, you can make it as maybe obvious, or you can leave it a mystery. So you'll have when you sell it on the market, you could get rated for how accurate the data is.
Which I think would imply that they're going to make it so that you can add more,
so the other thing is
more than just a title to it.
As well. And
I'm
it
hoping
would be
that's
very
the case.
nice to be able to route to that mission objective. How do we get there? That is another purpose of the map, is basically navigating and letting us know the way towards that objective, towards a destination. So let's go ahead and plot a route to this objective.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's so good. Man, when I first started playing Star Citizen, there was nothing even close to the navigational aids that we have today. Okay, today, we actually have really good signage in a lot of these space stations. You can navigate a space station with just the signs. When I first started playing Star Citizen, you would go to an ASOP terminal, and it was only Port Olisar to start. But you would make your way to the ASOP terminal, you would call your ship, and then you had to remember which pad it told you, because there was no way you were going to find your ship otherwise without having to check every single pad. And Port Olisar had 8 pads in total, right? So you could be walking around for a good 5 minutes before you actually find your ship if you did not remember what pad it was. Now, if you call it, it puts a marker out in the world for you to take you to your ship. That is such a huge improvement from when I started, and this takes it just a whole other level. Now you're looking for you're looking for shops, right? You want to find, where do you find the FPS weapon shop here at Orison? Well, now you can just filter by that and set a marker for there, and it will take you there. It's chef's kiss. It's great. I'm happy to see it.
So we can see a line being drawn from where we are up the stairs to our destination and where we want to go. So you will no longer be lost amidst all of our super complex environments.
Mm-hmm.
And what's worth mentioning at this point, and what's really cool, is this under the hood is actually utilizing another piece of tech, AI pathfinding. And so what that allows us to do is leverage other existing tech to basically, it does all the heavy lifting, we just make it look pretty.
Yeah. So what the NPCs would use to avoid dangers, it's the same thing that sets that path up for
the path
you.
Might be blocked. It might have a locked door, or there might be a fire that is in our way. The AI pathfinding will account for that. It will go through doors, it will handle elevators, and it will handle fires, locked doors, and it will just handle everything. So that is an example of sort of a piece of tech that we've leveraged under the hood to help us achieve this goal. So,
one thing they don't mention on that aspect is, how does it work if you have no way to get to your objective? Think about what it's going to be like in Squadron 42, right? And I'm not saying that they haven't thought of this. This is something that they probably would have had to have dealt with already. But let's say that Squadron 42 mission requires you to get past a certain door, but before you can get there, you need to find a key card, right? Maybe the path takes you up to the door, but it stops there because it can't progress any further, and you need to do some investigation to find that key card, for instance. You know, it would have been cool to see how they plan to address those kinds of edge cases where you need to do C, but before you can do that, you need to do A and B. And it's probably beyond the scope of this presentation, but it's just something that I'd like to see for the star map in the future. Just what do they plan to do for that?
One last thing we can do at the moment is we want to ensure that there are no more hostiles in our way as we make our way to our objective. So what we can do is we can send out a ping. Bone, if you send out a ping, please. So the scanning will also be represented in the map in the same fashion as it is when you're in FPS.
Okay, really cool idea though, but why does it disappear? I mean, if they moved from that location, okay, I could see that. You know, maybe have them fade away as they exit that vicinity. But why not just keep it persistent for, I don't know, 30 seconds?
So we know that there's no more hostiles. Let's go ahead and make our way to our objective. As you can see in the upper left corner, we now have the route line represented, our destination, and the distance it takes to get there. As we traverse this path, the path
Those are the people we scanned before.
And if you deviate from that path, it will recalculate the route you need to get to your destination.
Recalculating route. What a beaut. So good. And again, the callouts are there on the minimap, so you're trying to tell your friend, hey, I'm at upper maintenance, come give me a ride.
So we'll make our way up to the...
Okay, I'm going to emphasize again, Bone, really patient, nice guy. He sees that carrot coming in. I know he's thinking, man, what a cinematic moment. I should make sure I catch this so that the audience can enjoy that carrot coming in.
The carrot here? To the right.
Yeah, to the right, Bone. Keep moving to the right. No, Bone's getting that camera angle, dog.
You'll also notice the pin that we've laid down, as well as our marker objective called out on the map.
He knows what he's doing.
And
He
as
wanted
you'll
to
notice,
catch that
as you head
carrot
up the
swooping
stairs,
in.
the floor will dynamically change as you head up the stairs.
The timing of that is also perfect. The floor will dynamically change, and then all of a sudden it seems like it turned into a ramp. Not at all what he was meaning, but that Star Citizen glitchiness for you.
If we can get past this first, then.
The final boss, the stairs.
So
what an absolutely presidential way to go up a flight of
carrot,
stairs.
It's not just environments or caves or cities. We can represent the ship on our interior map.
Which, okay, green means doors, right? So the carrot ramp is a big tongue on the front of your ship. A big green tongue.
And it's totally seamless as you transition between the two. So let's go ahead and pull up our mobiGlass again and get a wider view of our ship.
I fly a carrot currently because it's the loaner for my galaxy. I have to personally give a tour of the carrot every time I try to do a multi-crew mission where I want people in the turrets, because they can't find the turrets on their own. Now, it's not the worst ship to do this in, but having this mini-map means that I never have to do that tour for that reason again. I can just say, hey, go to the turret, and they can use their mini-map, and they can go to the turret. Groundbreaking gameplay here, folks.
So we are now on the technical deck, but we can also see the other floors. If you traverse the floors, Bone, just to demonstrate it. Here's our cartography deck.
And you can see it's reorienting as he moves around. So it's keeping it legible, so
from a previous presentation
facing the bottom, I guess is how you'd say it.
Was very similar looking, right? It's utilizing our tech. So not only will this benefit you as a player, but it also benefits us as developers, because we generalize this system so that other developers can leverage our map to create compelling gameplay. So
yeah, because some of these ships, like the Starfarer, for instance, they can be used as like an FPS level. So it's important to have a good way of being able to navigate those ships, because you're going to have objectives on the ship.
Other teams can leverage our tech, and we leverage the tech from other teams, and it's a circle of life. And I think that's just too cool for school. So, we've been talking about environments, cities, representing ships on our map, maybe planet terrain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
These are quite, I mean, our universe is quite big, right?
It is. Let's skip to the zoom.
What happens? Have we tried that? Keep zooming out.
Keep zooming out, Bone.
All the way out. Let's go, let's go. So, it's not just the interior map, it's not just the radar, it is the map. It is one single unified system just across different scales.
Which is quite the challenge. Having a diegetic UI that changes dynamically and makes sense from a experience perspective, that is quite the task.
Talk about the map as seen at this scale. Thank you very much, everybody.
Welcome, Dr. Emily Hansen. Okay, so now we're at the Orison map. Really cool. Crusader
so
map, I should say.
excited to
Crusader
be
is the
here
name of the
today to
planet.
report this to you all. I hope you're excited too.
Oh yeah, this stuff is great.
Now, I think we all know the current star map needed a bit of work.
Yes.
And we've done that.
Understatement of the century.
Now, mapping the universe is no easy task, but we've taken some big steps forward with this upgrade to make it so much easier for you
Yeah, I'm just going to skip forward a little
to
bit.
our planet tech because they're starting with big. That's the one on.
So now we have this new planetary view. I don't know if I skipped it or not yet, but you can see everything is arranged to the galactic plane. She mentions that she might be just about to say that. Everything within the different frames of reference has a pretty intelligent scale to which it orients itself. So if you're at the planetary system level, it orients to the galactic plane. If you're at the solar system level, it orients to the galactic plane. But if you're on the planetary level, it will orient to the north-south orientation of the planet, and then rotate around depending on how you're looking at it. So it's really cool.
Yeah, so here we are, Crusader, its moons, orbits. You can also see that labels have received a major visual update. They're now fully 3D, and this gives them a really cool perspective. Most labels are aligned to the galactic plane, and they rotate with the map. Bone, give the map a spin.
So what that means is what we're used to right now is if you have, let's see, you have the Stanton star in the middle, right? You've got, see, I'm trying to orient it so that it makes sense to you guys. Okay, so you've got, it's reverse of what I'm used to. So Stanton star in the middle, then over here you've got Microtech, ArcCorp, Hurston, right? And then over here you've got Crusader. Well, when you rotate that so you're looking at it parallel, you have just a line of labels, and it gets really hard to read. But this way, everything kind of has a set spot on the map that doesn't change, and they're not going to cover each other nearly as often. So that's a big improvement from that perspective.
Can you tilt past the horizon, please? Cool.
And there you go.
When
It
we
flipped.
do this, the labels flip so you can always read them clearly. Labels for city markers and outposts work a little bit differently. Bone, let's double click on Selin now to focus on it.
And now we only see the labels that are immediately facing us. It is so much cleaner.
Labels face the camera and appear when they're in the central part of the planet, reducing on-screen clutter. Bone, want to show this in action?
Now, the one critique that I have about this point, you're going to notice that as they load in, see, it's this hand, isn't it? Okay, so like security post Kriska, if I go back a little bit, you're going to see, you see the S and then the E, C, R, C, U, R, I, T, Y, P, O, S, T. It pans across like that, right? It's a minor critique, but I would not have it do that. And the reason why is it's just going to slow down your navigation a little bit. It looks really good, but I think that it gets annoying after a while. So I would just have them just do the fade in and out. I think that that's totally fine. But at least that way, the information is immediately apparent and it still looks good.
Labels face the camera.
I'll go back so you can see what I'm talking
about. Part of the planet, reducing on-screen clutter. Bone, want to show this in action?
So, yeah, fills in across that way. I would just have it be instantly visible.
Markers on the far
But it
side
does look
of the
really
planet
cool.
fade out, so they don't take focus from the locations you currently care more about on the near side of the planet. Bone, can you double-click on one of the points of interest?
Oh, and didn't notice that last time. Is that... Okay, so security post Korea is up here orbiting Selin. It is not oriented to the planetary scale. it is oriented to the galactic plane like other celestial bodies are. Huh. That's interesting. I would have thought of it as a planetary marker, but the benefit of having it be this way is when you're trying to find Seraphim Station, for instance, Seraphim can get kind of hard to find amidst all these other icons. But if it's the only one that's pointing a different direction, makes it a little more visually distinguishable. So maybe it's less of a hassle to find Bajini, Everest Harbor, places like that, because it'll be oriented differently from everything else that you're looking at.
Markers on the far side of the planet fade out, so they don't take focus from the locations you currently care more about on the near side of the planet. Bone, can you double click on one of the points of interest? As we selected this marker, its label will stay visible at all angles. So far, we've showed you that you can use buttons and double-clicking to jump to objects you're interested in. But wouldn't it be nice if you could also freely zoom out and into locations? Shall we try it, Bone? Let's zoom out until we can see Crusader.
Zoom, zoom, zoom. It's seamless.
We wanted to ensure you
One
have freedom
unified
to move around,
map.
but this flexibility requires us to be really careful about how and when markers appear. Markers need to disappear when they get too small, but also stay visible when they're still relevant to your view. This isn't simple because objects in a solar system are vastly different sizes.
Yeah.
Think about the size of a star
Sub-millimeter
versus a planet versus you, the player.
to terameters.
Kind of small compared to a star, right? Our solution is a technique we call cosmetic scaling. This allows us to draw a marker at its real size when we are close to it and artificially increase its size as we zoom out until we reach the point where it collapses into larger points of interest in the hierarchy. You can see this in action here. There's no way Crusader and its moons are this size at this scale in reality. They've been scaled up massively so you can see them. Bone, let's zoom out a bit more so we can see the moons disappear.
They turn into little dots first, and then they disappear entirely.
You can also start to see Crusader's orbit line around the sun here. But before we go back to before we move on to that, let's zoom back in so we can see everything come back as we get closer.
Dots, and then moons. It's really good. It's really good, guys. So much better than what we have right now.
You can also pan around the map unrestricted. Bone, feel free to have a quick look around. As we draw closer to a marker, the cursor automatically magnetizes to it. This ensures you never lose track of what you're trying to view when you zoom in. No more zooming in on empty space.
Okay, now she doesn't talk about it, but as that cursor is moving around, you see that there is a vertical dotted line between this little plus-shaped cursor and the dot cursor. It seems that is indicating elevation of some kind, and I guess it would be relative to the galactic plane. The part that I don't know is when Bone is moving it around. I assume he's doing what we would do right now, and he's left-clicking and dragging, right? Is that moving just in X and Y, or is that also moving in Z? The reason why that's important is this system, yes, is very flat, but others are not, right? Like, if we pick one of the more complicated planets, Uranus is famous in the sense that it's sideways relative to our solar system, which is not a very common phenomenon. It's typical that things will kind of fall into a plane with each other. So the fact that Uranus is sideways is pretty unique. But that means that if you were to navigate to Belinda, that's going to be above that galactic plane a lot of the time. So how is the movement accounting for those kinds of things? It might not be a super big deal. I might be making a bigger deal of it than is necessary, but it's just one of the things that I noticed that I'd like to know more about. So how is it handling that z-axis? And will it be easily intuitive to us?
Bone, let's use this technique to take a closer look at Yayla. The magnetic cursor does not require us to click on markers. Keep zooming in. Bone, can you keep zooming in?
Come on, be nice as Bone. He's doing his best.
The markers appear without us needing to select Yayla itself. Imagine how much easier finding that outpost will be now.
It's great. I love this.
Crusader, as you all know, isn't all there is, though. We've got a pretty big universe out here.
Yes, we do.
Want to see some more?
Yes, we do.
Let's have a look at a location further afield. Can we just pan to Calliope, maybe? Bone, let's give that a try.
Oh no, where's Calliope?
We're getting lost. Pretty sure we can all disagree this might not be the best strategy. So what can we do? Bone, let's try clicking on the middle button over here. This returns us to our previously selected marker. As I mentioned, we did not select Yayla, so we've gone back to Selin. So now we know where we are. That's a step in the right direction, but we're still not at Calliope. So we need to find a different way. Bone, could you use the step back button until we can see the whole solar system, please?
And they don't do it here. I was hoping that they might have made a mistake and accidentally pressed the step back button one more time to show us how it integrates Pyro into this demo, but it doesn't happen.
I think Calliope is one of Microtech's moons.
It is.
So if we double click on that bone, we should be able to see it. And there it is. Bone, let's pan to it and then zoom in so we can see that magnetic cursor in action again. Can you zoom in, Bone? Thank you.
He was demonstrating for you again. Come on, be nice to Bone. He does what he's told. He does pan over to Calliope, but then he's like, hey, look, I can put it on Cleo, and I can put it on Calliope, and I can put it on Cleo, and I can put it on Calliope.
Bone, let's pan to it and then zoom in so we can see that magnetic cursor in action again. Can you zoom in, Bone? Thank you.
Zoom in, Bone.
It's so cool to see more of our moons and planets and how different they all look.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is great.
Okay, so that's a good example of what I'm talking about. For a second here, we don't see any markers, even though there are markers facing us. I think that little panning text is a mistake from that perspective, just because it adds a delay to finding stuff.
It's so cool to see more of our moons and planets.
Like, okay, I forget. You guys can't see where I'm pointing at the screen. So this guy right here, we should see that. It pops in just a second, but right now it's not visible. And it would be convenient if it was.
And how different they all look.
See, it takes a second, but...
Okay.
And here's another instance. It's coming up, but there's still moments where you have no information on screen It should
is
just
great.
be there immediately.
But what if I hadn't already known where Calliope was? Surely there's a faster way. We've got you. We've provided a drop-down that lists the points of interest in the solar system. Bone, want to expand it now?
And this is funny because Bone does what I know a lot of us would do, because we tend to click on the arrow. That's how a lot of the UX experiences with drop-downs work nowadays. So he goes to click on the arrow. It doesn't do anything because you have to click the word. So minor tweak. They just make it so that both do the same thing. But it's funny that it happened live on stage. I'm trying. It's not working. Oh, I need to go to select.
We're actively working on ways to improve the way this list is presented to you, to make it even easier to find what you're looking for. And yes, this will include search functionality.
But not yet. Search will be huge, though.
But for now, Bone, let's use this to go to Aerial.
Crazy easy.
I absolutely love zooming around on.
Okay, and I mentioned this at the very start of the stream. You see that capital GM? That, my friend, is a gigameter. So no longer will we be saying MKM in chat for million kilometers. We're getting educated now, and we're saying gigameter, like alpha chads that we are.
On this map. Bone, want to find area 18 for me? So, area 18 is currently on the dark side of the planet, it seems. Of course, it's not just planets and moons. Bone, how about we take a look at Security Post Korea? It's quite a long way down, isn't it? This is where the upcoming search will really come in useful.
Yes. Okay, and it seems like it went under the galactic plane for Area 18, and now it's over it for Security Post Korea. Seems like it's doing that based off of where it is in relation to the galactic plane. So Area 18 was towards the bottom, so it flips it. Now we're above it. So if that's how it's working, that's pretty cool.
Bone, want to zoom in a little and show off our holographic model of this station?
Zoom in more. Show us the map.
Bone, can you also drop down again, please? Thank you. As you may have noticed, the recent list in the drop-down populates as you click on locations in the list.
Okay.
It will remember your 3 most recent selections, so you can use this to quickly return to places in case you want to check something else again. Bone, let's use this to go back to Aerial. Okay, so we've done a lot of exploring. I think it's time that we head back. We could do this by selecting Orison from the list, but we also have our own marker that we can take advantage of here. The eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed that the player marker clamps to the edge of the map, keeping it visible to you no matter how far away you go. To get back to our position, we could double-click that marker, or we could click the first of the navigation buttons to zoom straight there. Now, I'm sure many of you have been wondering if we can go back to our carrot map from the star map, just like how we got here from the carrot map just a few minutes ago.
I think we can.
Let's see what happens when we focus on our player marker. Go ahead, Bone.
And we're back on the technical deck of Carrot. This is so good.
All right. So yeah, here's our Carrick again. Being able to simply zoom between these map contexts lets you draw meaningful connections between what's on the ground and what's in the skies like never before. Bone, just for fun, let's zoom all the way back out so we can see the entire Stanton solar system.
But go further, Bone.
It's just so cool to watch the verse open up before our eyes.
See, that's where you need your Logitech mouse with the freewheel. Because then you can just get it really spinning
With all these
fast.
new possibilities for moving around the star map, you should never find yourself lost again. The controls are so much smoother and easier to use than the star map you're all used to, as I hope Bone agrees. Knowing that what we've shown here today is just the beginning.
Isn't that right, Bone? Don't you agree?
You saw pinning in the local map, and we'll add this to the star map before you get here. Just imagine being able to mark something interesting you find out there in the verse and then sharing that location with friends, just like Zane said. Exploration is about to get a lot more interesting, and we're doing everything we can to ensure the star map is your brightest window to the stars yet.
Now, with those custom markers, can I quantum travel to them? Because that's a huge thing. Can I buy a marker to Benny Henge, for instance?
Demo driver Bone back to the stage.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks a lot. So we're really, really excited about
This guy seems like he's not super comfortable being on stage. I don't fault him. Being on stage is terrifying. But he is also in charge of one of the single most important updates.
Where you make your way around the
So
universe.
if I was him, I'd be having such an ego trip. But he seems to stay pretty
We built
humble.
the visor display to give you a better understanding of the environment around you. With the new mini-map, with the integrated radar and ping, and it will help you find your way around. There's a new Mobiglass coming with its sleek new design. We're improving all the existing apps, and we're going to develop some new ones too along.
Okay, I think this adds more credence to what we were talking about earlier, Schlag and I. Because here's kilopascals. I know kilopascals. It's the same kind of icon. So it would make sense that the HPA that we saw earlier is hectopascals.
The way. So,
And, okay, sorry. Another thing that they show here is gravity. I'm sure a lot of people are not going to care too much about it besides just showing, oh yeah, it's a low gravity area. But for me, for the kinds of videos that I make where I'm doing force calculations and looking at different scientific elements as they appear in Star Citizen, this will give me an easy reference point to figure out force of gravity acting on you, for instance. So I'm really excited to see just a little number to make it easy for me. Same with this, the pressure meter. That's going to make for a lot of interesting content, specifically for the stuff that I cover in the future. So thank you, CIG. Feels like you were thinking about me when you did that.
so we've got a video now. And then there's our interior map technology, which will truly help you understand your surroundings. Better awareness of your surroundings and threats, exploring new mapping new areas, pinning locations for later and sharing these with your friends.
That's an Idris, very sneaky.
That looks great.
But again, it'd be really cool if you're navigating a ship to be able to find all those important seats, like the turrets. Idris has a ton of them, and it's a military ship, so it's one of the most important things that you're going to be looking for. So adding different filters like that, I think, will be important for the future.
Some more of Horizon.
And of course, our entirely new integrated star map. With its new interface and, let's face it, a much needed refresh to the user experience. No more getting lost, a whole new perspective. With all these upcoming features, where will you explore today? Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheerios to the grocery list. Bone, rescue the hostages. Dave Haddock, if we don't have that in the narrative.
Yeah, okay. I'll let Jared
All
make
right.
make the joke because
Sorry.
he
I was
says
back there
basically
trying
the
to
same
figure
thing
out
I
how
was
to
thinking.
reprogram my Alexa to respond to Bone. Bone, add Cheerios to the grocery list. Bone, rescue the hostages. Dave Haddock, if we don't have that in the narrative, I'm going to find you. Guys, that's it for day one of CitizenCon. What'd you think?
Pretty great. I'm excited for tomorrow, man. What else we got in store?
That is a heck of a day one. You want to do it again tomorrow?
Yeah.
We saw Star Engine and all the amazing improvements that are coming to Star Citizen and Squadron 42.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the next step in the evolution of resource management and the birth of multi-crew gameplay.
Yup. Engineering. We kind of skipped over that, but very tier 0. The ship guys. Such a small
And of
part.
course, come on, the star map, the interior map, everything.
Okay. I'm going to take a quick pause here to mention our sponsor, Monster Tech. We are doing a giveaway courtesy of Monster Tech. They made the chair that you see me sitting on right now. It's been a staple for me ever since I got it. It is fantastic. They made these custom joystick mounts for me. We didn't get around to playing today, but I use these all the time. They snap magnetically. They're amazing. I love Monster Tech as a company. And if you want to win a set of chair or desk mounts, all you have to do is like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below using this stream's secret word once this becomes a VOD. So just reload the page once you're done watching the stream, or if you're watching this the day after, just comment down below. But comment using this stream's secret word, and that secret word is, what do you think Jared was about to let slip in the next part here? Let's keep watching.
I often joke that we're just like you in many of the same ways. We want the same things. We need the same things. We have all collectively, all 1,300 of us working for Cloud Imperium Games, been like, when Star Map? When? To see it. So good. So yeah, this wraps up day one. I'm going to tell you that Hall B is going to be open for about another 2 hours. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the Pyro Playground and all that stuff, go ahead and do that. Tomorrow, be sure you come back. We got character advancement. That's Ian Leyland, Sean Tracy, Forrest Steffen, and Andre Perez. I really want to tell you what you're going to see, but you're not going to want to miss it. If you thought the opening to day one was hot, check out the opening to day two. We got life in the first person. We got our FPS crew. They're going to show you how all of these things integrate into the FPS combat experience. We got Taking Flight with Yogi. Who doesn't love Yogi? It's another live demo where they're going to show you the space flight and atmospheric flight experience that's been developed with master modes and through Squadron 42. We got Living on the Edge and Destination Adventure, a 2-part look at all the new locations that are coming in the Pyro system, the Stanton system, and
What is he about to say? He was going to say something. Comment down below what you think Jared almost let slip, and you'll be entered for a chance to win.
I got to make it to 10. So,
but Monster Tech has been great to work with. I love them as a sponsor. Comment down below what you think Jared almost let slip, and you'll be entered for a chance to win. Once this channel reaches 1,000 subscribers, we'll be doing a giveaway live on stream. So thank you for watching my coverage. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you for your support. I really couldn't do this without you guys. I'm happy to have you along for the ride. But until next time, this is Odd Job Entertainment, signing off.